So it's hard to see, but yeah, this does seem to, yeah, this it's hard. It does look like maybe, I mean, he gets out of the way, but does the car come in contact? And I guess, yeah, the argument is the car from this angle does look like it's coming toward, like, Tyler, are you watching this? This like second angle?
Yeah,
Right?
no, it does. Like even the other view, the car does he does not pull out his gun until that car gets put into drive and starts moving forward. Split second, he pulls out his gun and starts firing. Um, that car did slightly start to turn before he started firing, but I had to watch it in 0.25% speed to see what actually happened at all. It's a 1 second thing. I personally, in a fair court of law, I think that it was it doesn't mean it's necessary. It doesn't mean it was a good call. I think it will be deemed a justified shoot.
Yeah, I guess
Maybe not
yeah.
Minnesota.
I guess, yeah, like legally, I think that's one thing, but I guess like from an ethical thing. And again, with other cases with vehicles, I'm like, in most of these cases, I'm usually on the side of the cop here. This one seems like, this one, I don't know, man. It just seems like he did get out of the way. The gun didn't help him get out of the way, right? Like in the France shooting, if you know which one I'm talking about, the guy's like against like he's like under an overpass, and he's like squished between the overpass, and the car's coming. It's gonna crush him, and so he pulls out the gun and like shoots into the guy. That was the only option, and people got mad at that. And I'm like, that's like, dude, what else are you supposed to do? But in this case, like, the gun didn't help him get out of the way of danger. So unless there's some context where she's like armed and dangerous and is trying to flee, because someone fleeing isn't just a justification for police to kill them, right? Unless they're armed and dangerous, and then that's justification, because then they might go and like kill somebody else.
Even then, sometimes
In this case, like,
gray area.
yeah, even then, it can be
and they're not
iffy.
aiming it at the cops. Then yeah, there's still some gray area there. They have to be like turning around with the gun aimed at the cops, like we saw with the Atlanta Wendy's, I think it was, or maybe it was an Arby's, where they killed the guy like around the time of George Floyd.
Yeah, I think I know which one you're talking about. And Stacy, I can't show everything. I can't show everything, so I'm trying to be like limited with what I show. We can, again, this show, if you want the lead up is in this Philip DeFranco video here. Unfortunately, I don't think I could show this angle from the actual video because it's like, I think it's too shoot coded. Yeah, so this is the only lead up I know.
Yeah, Stacey, if you want the full show, you got to pay for his OnlyFans.
ICE officer who told to get the fuck
That's true.
She then tried to back away a little before then going forward in her SUV. It's looking like she's trying to get away.
And Philip DeFranco, I know, I mean, he's kind of, obviously he's on, a farther side than me. Like, just politically, he's saying that it's looking like she's trying to get away. I typically think I agree. I don't think she was, like Marilyn said, that she's aiming for him. I mean, he goes in front of the car. She's turning the car. I don't think she's at least trying to hit the guy. It looks like he's trying to like body block at the very least.
No, he doesn't. It doesn't look like he moved. I was watching for that, but she does start to come forward at him. It wasn't necessary. I think you could tell by the demeanor and the speed the car was going that he probably would have suffered at most a small bruise. And so I don't think it was necessary, but I don't think necessary and legally justified are the same goalposts. So
that's true. I want to be clear, because it sounds like I actually agree with more people in chat than I think I do, because I agree with Big Soda. Like, it could be the legally justified. It very well could be. Morally, when I say it's a bad shot, I'm talking morally. I think it's a bad shot. I don't think it was necessary. But yeah, I am speaking morally in that case. And yeah, sarcastic say typical leftist won't show everything. Thanks, Conf. It's like, I would if I could, okay, but I can't, so I won't. But we're gonna move into the press conference, and then I see you in the back, Stacy. We're gonna open up the panel, but I want to have Tyler here, who's more politically informed than I. And if you have time, we're going to watch the press conference of Kristi Noem and see, because I'm not sure. I actually have no idea. I think even she is going to say it's a bad shot. That's my guess, but maybe not. I think she's even going to say it's a bad shot, or maybe she'll just be like, well, we have to investigate it and stuff, but I'm not sure.
Over an hour. My Gibbs panel is in an hour and 10 minutes. And Sarah, yeah, you're an open panel guest. I'm a special guest, a correspondent, if you will.
It's true. Tyler is a special guest. So, okay, so we're moving to Yeah, I think I have it at the right time here. So yeah, so I have not watched this yet, so I don't know if there's gonna be spin. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. So we're just gonna see what happens.
Oh,
This is
that
true,
fucking
Seymour.
guy.
That's kind of always
Good
true,
evening,
though.
everyone. Thank you for being
Truth,
here
George
tonight.
Floyd, truth,
I
like
want
all
to
that stuff.
start out by addressing the loss of life that we saw here in Minneapolis
on the
today.
wrong fucking
Any
account.
loss of life is a tragedy, and I think all of us can agree that in this situation it was preventable. I've spoken to the president today on the situation here on the ground. I also just got off the phone a little while ago with Governor Walz and spoke to him as well. I want to reiterate first with all of you the facts of what happened today. At 10:25 a.m. Central Time, Immigration and Customs Enforcement were carrying out lawful operations here in Minneapolis. Because of the adverse weather that Minneapolis has seen in recent snow, one of the vehicles became stuck and ensnared in the snow. Law enforcement were attempting to push out this vehicle, and when a mob of agitators that were harassing them all day began blocking them in, shouting at them, and impeding law enforcement operations. ICE officers and agents approached the vehicle of the individual in question, who was blocking the officers in with her vehicle, and she had been stalking and impeding their work all throughout the day. ICE agents repeatedly ordered her to get out of the car and to stop obstructing law enforcement, but she refused to obey their commands. She then proceeded to weaponize her vehicle.
Okay, so
and
she is
attempted
going to say it's a
run
good
another
shot.
Law enforcement officer over. This appears as an attempt to kill or to cause bodily harm to agents.
Fuck off, Tyler. That's crazy.
That's what she has to say. I don't know if she believes it or not, but that's what she has to say. Otherwise, she has to throw the agent
Yeah.
under the bus. So that's
Yeah,
if she
and
says anything otherwise, that's evidence in the court case against him.
Yeah, that's true. I guess that's true. Good to see you, Christian, by the way. Good to see you. Yeah, I guess they have to. And this is so terrible, though. Like, the tensions with ICE are already, like, so fucking high. And then you have something like this happen. In Minneapolis, of all fucking places. Like, holy shit. Fucking ground zero for fucking chicanery like this. You know, it's just a bad look, okay? A bad look. But yeah, wait, I don't know. I think Tyler's right. I don't think it's that, like, I don't think that's like people are bootlickers. I think what Tyler's saying is true. It's like there is a degree where she has to say this type of stuff, right? Probably, especially in the immediate aftermath, right? Because like otherwise, it's just gonna be chaos.
Domestic terrorism. The ICE officer, fearing for his life.
Domestic terrorism, Christy?
Bodily harm
Really?
She is kind of retarded, right? Keep in mind.
Terrorism. The ICE officer, fearing for his life and the other officers around him and the safety of the public, fired defensive shots. He used his training to save his own life and that of his colleagues. He was treated at a local hospital, has been released, and is now with family. I encourage the American people at this point in time to pray for him, but also to pray for the deceased's family and her loved ones. Today,
For the cop that shot? Is that what she's saying?
4 different domestic terrorist attacks.
I'm sure he's not proud of it.
By the ramming of
I'm sure he's like
3 of
fine
them
though.
happened here in
Maybe a little bit traumatized that he had to
We've
shoot
seen
a
over
woman.
100 of these vehicle rammings.
Remember,
That's true.
remember the first? I just watched this Christmas movie,
Iceland
Die
is
Hard.
facing a 1300%.
That fat black cop wouldn't even shoot anybody again because he killed a kid. So it's traumatizing.
Yeah. If it's just her saying that he was treated in the hospital. It's like, for what? Like, for what? It's just like, it's making it sound like he's like, if I didn't watch the video and I just listened to this, I would think the video looks entirely different. I would think the guy like hit the cop going like 40 miles per hour. You know, like that's how she's making it sound. It's just weird to hear this level. Domestic terrorism. The cop was treated in the hospital. Please pray for him. It's just like, we're overselling it here.
It's PR, and that's why Trump has the people in the positions they do. Kristi Noem was basically a DEI hire that was going to lose her seat and just be out of politics. So they brought her into the administration because she's a hot woman, and Trump loves those. It's a DEI pick in a different way. So
pretty privileged.
She's pretty dumb. She's just a PR person, so all she's doing is putting PR spin on it. You take that shit to court. He went to the hospital to get checked out. The judge is gonna be like, "And what did they say was wrong with him? Nothing. Not even bruising. Okay, then why the fuck are you even bringing that irrelevant shit up?" So, you're right to call that out. She's being a little over the top here.
Yeah, oh yeah. Although yeah, she is, like you said, low-key retarded. Christian says, did she have a weapon? No, unless you count the SUV as a weapon, which, you know, fair enough. I just don't know if it's necessary. What were they supposed to do with an insubordinate woman driving a huge SUV? What the cop already did, which was sidestep the vehicle, which he did. He didn't. You don't need the gun. The gun didn't help him sidestep anything. Okay, I feel like that has to be clear. Maybe in that state of mind, that's a different case, and this is why, yeah, with the legal side, I'm not sure, because yeah, you're in that state of mind. Cars coming towards you, right? Like, there's adrenaline, there's panic, right? I'm not saying I would have done better if I was in the ICE officer's shoes, but it doesn't seem good. It doesn't seem good.
In assaults against them, and an 8,000% increase in death threats against all of them. In fact, the very same officer who was attacked today had previously been dragged by an anti-ICE rioter who had rammed him with a car and drug him back in June. He sustained injuries.
Oh, see, that's the problem. Okay, this guy's got some car-related PTSD. He's already been. Maybe they shouldn't have people like that keep working then, though. Because I understand if you got dragged by a car, yeah, you're gonna be a little car phobic. That makes sense to me. But then maybe you shouldn't be like, maybe you should take some time off. That's all I'm saying, you know.
Scene from the original Dumb and Dumber where he keeps waking up. He wakes up and the headlights of the semi are right there.
No.
Oh, okay, that's the trauma.
I did when I was a kid. I was like so long ago.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in like 20 years, but like, you know, there were titties in the scene, so that's why I remember. But yeah, that's the trauma this cop wakes up to every night. It's just two headlights coming at him. He wakes up sweating, so any car gets accelerated near him, he's already going for his gun. Yeah.
He's already pointing. He's already mag dumped like 10 seconds before that.
Yeah,
what Big Soda says, to be fair, it's a Somali's fault. They wouldn't be there if they were frauding. Yeah, I do want to blame the Somalis on this, so that checks out, actually.
Yeah. If you watch internet theory videos, that's how they blame people. You know, you started the chain of events, so nobody has agency anymore.
Exactly. We're like at the start of all of this, okay? Which is the Somalis.
Which is how I blame
why
the
we're all
Jews.
here in this city today.
Exactly,
Why we've
yeah.
been here. In communities across this country and here in Minneapolis, we're just enforcing the laws that we have in this country. For years under President Biden, tens of millions of dangerous criminal illegal aliens, terrorists, and suspected terrorists were allowed to invade our country over our southern border. They were allowed to steal, to defraud, and to perpetuate violence against American citizens. Regardless of who your mayor or who your governor is, President Trump promised every single American that he would make America safe again. He promised.
And see, this is fucking cope. This is such cope, right? What does any of that have to do with the shot that happened, right? Like that she's just explaining the role of ICE. I don't think, at least I'm not critiquing the role of ICE here. I'm critiquing this exact situation that happened, right? Like, so now we're gonna like pivot into like fucking immigration and like securing the borders and all this shit.
The
I don't know,
argument
man.
here isn't with you; it's with the media that's going to be covering this. So, like this idea, like if you watch mainstream media, it's ICE is incredibly violent and treating people awfully and blah blah blah. You see it like the people that are here illegally, that refused all the kind offers that led up to this, to leave, to get paid to leave. The Trump administration was paying people to self-deport and shit like that. They ignored all that, and now ICE is deporting them against their will, and they're resisting arrest, and people are recording it. Like, look how evil ICE is. This is what anyone that resists arrest, this is what happens to them. So it's kind of that she's preempting for the media narrative on this. This is ICE's job. They're supposed to be there. This is federal law. States don't have the right. 13 states don't have the right to ignore federal law and hinder federal officers. So that's what the court.
That's fair. That's fair. That's actually a good point. I can't assume that I'm the target audience for this. This is because I broadly support ICE already. Yeah, that's a good reminder. Ed says ICE has been threatened to dox and riot against nonstop since Trump came into office. Can you actually blame ICE for taking a harsh stance? No, and I am pro ICE, and I think all the ICE doxing, all the stuff that's happening is like incredibly bad. Like I think and I understand how this type of thing can happen. I wouldn't say I'm not sitting here saying I would do a better job of this. I've never been an ICE officer, okay? But yeah, I still don't think it was a great shot. But yeah, I'm not saying I don't understand the massive pressure that ICE agents are under, you know. And yeah, maybe you just, with that amount of pressure, you eventually have stuff like this happen when you have like ICE agents getting dragged and doxxed and attacked and all the all the shit that's happened. Maybe it's just a thing that we have to accept.
Every single American that he would work to protect them from dangerous criminals.
Be interesting to
Since
see if he
Governor Walz
does
has been
get
in charge
charged
of
though
Minnesota,
eventually or
We
no.
have seen homicides go up by over
No,
50%. That's also during Mayor Fry's tenure as well. Since President Trump took office, Governor Walz has released over 470 violent criminals back onto the streets here in Minneapolis.
Come here.
He has another 680 of them still within his jurisdiction that he could give to us today to face the consequences for their crimes.
Oh, don't be a
Because
pussy.
Governor
Come
Walz
here.
and Mayor Fry refuse to protect Minnesotans, and instead they protect these criminals, that's why we are here. And we didn't just show up yesterday, we've always been here. But we're surging operations because of the dangerous situation we see in this country, and because we're no longer going to allow illegal criminals.
Okay, see, this is crazy on the other side. Look, I feel like I'm being a bit left-coded on this, but they don't need guns. You don't think ICE officers need guns? Have you seen what people try to do to ICE officers, brother?
Bro, the
They
IRS
do
has
need
guns.
guns.
The
Yeah,
IRS.
yeah, the fucking IRS. So the ICE definitely needs guns. Okay, that's just like, I don't think you could possibly. You say no to, I don't even know how you could possibly have that stance
I'm
if you've
sorry.
seen any of the videos of what's been happening. Like,
I'm sorry.
I don't know, man.
Have you never been to America? We all have guns. Fuck you.
Yeah, so you're gonna have the people that are actually like LE not have the guns, but everyone else does. Just a bad idea. Bad idea.
Damage and harm, to kill, to sexually abuse, to
This
proliferate
retard on the
drugs,
stream
and
just
to
said I
steal
shouldn't have
American
guns.
taxpayers' dollars.
You should.
This state has
Me?
faced
Why not me?
unprecedented
I'm very
immigration
responsible.
fraud. It's
I
seen
take care of your
unprecedented
ass.
benefit fraud. Individuals were allowed to come into this country and set up fake companies and fake nonprofits and divert billions of dollars away from American citizens. and
True,
those
Big Soda,
vulnerable
true.
Citizens who truly needed the services from those programs. This
My wife
Tyler
says
wife
hello.
reveal? Tyler wife
Mayor
reveal? Hi,
Dr.
Tyler's wife.
President
I
Trump
said
is
hi.
not going to let that happen. He and our federal law enforcement officers are here to bring peace and to bring public safety and to ensure that criminal activity is stopped and that people who perpetuate it will face consequences. Since we have been here in recent weeks, we have arrested over 1,500 criminals off of the streets. Our law enforcement has arrested murderers.
Man, I
felons,
wish you would talk
suspected
more about the
terrorists,
exact
child
shooting.
pedophiles, and other brutal criminals. That
Wait,
were
child
here in this state.
pedophiles? Wait, they've arrested child pedophiles? Is that what she said?
Yeah, probably like 6.
What's a child pedophile?
Oh,
What does that even mean,
no, I see
Chrissy?
yeah, I see where you're going with
Yeah.
that. It's a 14-year-old that
We
likes
all work
6-year-olds.
Yeah, I guess so. They're sneaking in from Mexico, you know,
All
these
protect
kids,
the
these
men
child
and the women and
pedos.
the families who live here in Minneapolis, who live in Minnesota.
Tyler is moved in Big
throughout
Soda,
this
yeah.
Entire country. I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank you for focusing on the important work that our federal officers do, and make sure that we're focused on the priorities of this country, and that's making sure that we're keeping
Huh?
people safe. With that, I'll take any questions that you may have.
14 what? Did I make a joke like that? I'm high, I don't remember.
I say that he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's very clear that this individual was harassing and impeding law enforcement operations. Our officer followed his training, did exactly what he's been taught to do in that situation, and took actions to defend himself and defend his fellow law enforcement officers. The officer was hit by the vehicle. She hit him. He went to the hospital. A doctor did treat him. He has been released, but he's going to spend some time with his family.
What were the injuries? That's what you were asked, Christy. You're not going to say it. You're not going to say it.
It's
Which I
confidential.
understand. I get it gets PR, but you know, it's just like,
I can't, but the FBI will continue the investigation and release more facts when it's appropriate. No, we're following the standard protocol procedures we do in situations like this. When there's an officer involved shooting, we make sure that we get the facts and that we are getting the statements from everybody involved and make sure
Oh, that could be true, Big
investigators are
Soda.
handling the decisions. No, we're still out on the streets doing our work to get dangerous.
why would they
criminals off
pause?
of the
What a
streets.
stupid question. Retard media.
You know, Tim and I have known each other for years. We served in Congress together. We both ran for governor the same year. and have served as governor at the same times. So we were colleagues, and we discussed what happened here today. We have two very different viewpoints of it. I talked specifically about the fact that we have laws, they need to be enforced. He knows that I believe sanctuary policies have protected criminals and placed a priority of them over the citizens that live here. And he knows we'll continue to do our work, and I encouraged him to work with us. We've never had a cooperative.
Okay, a brief pause, because Tom says no reason for this at all. I'm tempted to agree. All the people in the chat saying like fuck around and find out. Okay, like on one hand, I understand what you're saying. On the other hand, we didn't say that on the right about Ashley Babbitt, right? Like the left said that, but it's like, okay, maybe Tyler did. Maybe Tyler did. I think that was a bad shot with Ashley Babbitt. But you could also say that's a fuck around and find out situation too. Like, are we going to be consistent, chatters? Are we going to be consistent and say that both of those are fuck around and find out situations? Because like I think both of those are bad shots. So at least I think I'm consistent. But you can't say Ashley Babbitt was like a bad shot and then also say that this one is like a fuck around and find out. Otherwise, Ashley Babbitt fucked around and found out, right? Bad shot. And then just saying.
With law enforcement.
Tell me I'm wrong, okay? Well,
Whenever we've done
tell me why I'm wrong
investigations,
specifically.
We've done police work, when we've been doing what we can to bring people to justice for the crimes that they commit. We haven't had the cooperation of the state of Minnesota or the city police here under the mayor's direction. If you talk to any of these federal law enforcement officers, they'll say that when they call for backup in a situation, that it's hit and miss. They were grateful today that the police chief and local law enforcement showed up at the scene and helped secure it to make sure that nobody was harmed and that the FBI could do their work. But I would encourage them to work with us, that we could form a partnership that would make sure that individuals have the opportunity to have a safe Minneapolis. Over here.
No, I want that first question to be answered.
It's clearly established law that
Tyler, do you know someone interrupted the previous question about the body cam footage? That will have to be released, right? That's like you could do like a FOIA request, like that will get out, right? The body cam stuff.
About 80-90% chance.
Do ICE agents have to wear body cameras? I don't even know if that's true.
I don't
do they
know,
need to?
Actually, that's a good question. Generally, there are ways to prevent body cam footage from coming out. They can delay it or they can deny it, especially if it's under a pending investigation. But generally, if you're not the complainant trying to get it for your legal defense, then generally after you have to wait till everything's finished.
But I guess the question is, do ICE agents wear body cam? I actually don't know this. I don't think I've ever seen an ICE body cam footage, at least from like the recent stuff. I don't know. Does anyone in the chat know this? I'm punting to the chat. Christian says they do. Jason says they're not required to. Yeah, well, they don't have to ID, but that's like. I hope you're just saying that factually, Tom, but based on what you're saying, I think you're probably saying that's like a bad thing, but that's like a normal thing. There's a ton of like plainclothes, like FBI officers that also don't have to identify themselves. That's like a normal thing in federal law enforcement, right? That's not like something special with ICE or nothing.
A vehicle driven by a person and used to harm someone is a deadly weapon. Deadly force is perfectly lawful when a threat is faced by a weapon.
In February 2005, they were told they legally had to wear body cams, so there is an ICE body cam out there. I'm just not sure how the FOIA shit works.
So we'll probably get it eventually, I'm thinking. So this will be a developing story. Wait, so Tyler, is your intuition that you don't think then, based on I guess what Christy is saying, and that this officer isn't like suspended from duty, do you think this guy's not being charged? Like, you don't think there's going to be a criminal case at all?
He could still get charged on the state level, I think. I don't know if he's not going to be charged.
Right, because Walls would want to charge him based on even what Christy is saying.
Yeah, and I don't know if he wouldn't be found guilty in Minnesota.
Wait. Okay, now I'm getting confused. I don't know enough about how this shit works. Can a federal law enforcement officer be charged by the state if they're acting in a federal capacity? Like, is that a thing? Like, if an FBI officer shoots somebody and the state declares it murder, can the state charge the federal LE? Like, is that even a thing? Like, I have absolutely no idea how that shit works, right? Because previously with like George Floyd, it's like at least that was a state cop at a state level. It makes sense, right? But a federal, I have no idea. Yeah, Big Soda says, I don't think a federal officer can be charged in official action. I'm not sure. Federally, they
Oh,
can be
I
charged.
think
But
everyone
can they be
can
charged on a
in
state
official
level?
action. Yeah, I think all of them can be charged in an official action. If you commit murder while you're on duty, you can
Yeah.
be charged for it. Absolutely.
But can you be charged at a state level if you're in a
What I'm
yeah
saying
court?
here is
Yeah,
yes.
so it specifies at a state level. You
What I'm
can be.
seeing here is yes. The Supreme Court ruled that federal officers are not immune to state criminal charges merely by virtue of their position. The state retains authority to prosecute federal agents for violations of the law. This is a Supreme Court precedent, apparently. So yeah,
And that's not just like outside of their acts. That is also like as that's not like some like diplomatic immunity thing where you like if you're just like do something outside of your purview, but even if you're like acting, you can still be charged.
yeah, I'm reading another one right now. ICE agents can be charged with murder on the state level. Yes, so yeah, if you're acting within your job now, qualified immunity exists, but that only exists for civil infractions. So
Right. Yeah.
if
Yeah.
they do that, if they do something criminal, then yes, they can criminally be charged. You can get charged on the state level. They might get them with like one of the degrees of murder. And
So then that probably almost certainly will happen based on it happening in Walls' state, right? Like that he probably will try to charge this as a homicide to some degree, right?
he may. So you're right. You may see that, and I think one of the theories that you brought up earlier that he had post car PTSD from the incident in June might actually be something brought up to talk about his mental state in the moment that he fired. Like, was he too quick to draw because he had recently just had this bad thing happen to him? I think we're gonna at least hear that brought up. If the judge lets it in, isn't something I know or not. That's a Ryan Mullally question.
That's probably the best defense, probably. Right? That just like the tensions, because I don't know, just pure self-defense. I mean, I don't know. It's like we've seen lesser cases have trouble with self-defense stuff and at least be like really litigated in courts over like even Rittenhouse. No, people couldn't decide on Rittenhouse, and that's like, to me, that's like an open and shut, the clearest case of like self-defense ever, and people couldn't decide on that one. So this one, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel like this one's gonna be a shit show if it actually goes to court.
No, the only people that didn't side with the Rittenhouse things are the ones that constantly infuse their politics into their thought-making process. Like, how
That's
is
like
my
half the
answer-
country.
Yeah, how is my answer going to affect the PR for my party? And so I need to tailor my answer to make it so my party's always good, the opposite side's always bad. We need to perpetuate the daily rage cycle against the other group. So, generally, people that deny obvious shit like that, like the 2020 election being stolen, like, there's nothing still to this day that proves that. It's just people getting on their side and going with it.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's not murder. She was in a 2,000-pound weapon. I mean, yeah, but this is someone else said it's the same as brandishing. And like, if you're driving fast, then I agree with that. If you're like hypothetically, if you are, let's say, going at just like an idle speed, right? Like then it's like, well, then I'm not sure if it's the same as like, as like pointing a gun at a cop,
Should the
like, I don't know.
officer that's right next to the car in front of it while it's moving forward have to wait for her to hit a certain speed before he says, I'm going to shoot her? And at what speed would it require him to do that, if so? And like, you don't need to also be going fast. She could pin him up against a wall of a close building or something like that. Maybe not in that specific situation,
Right, but that's
a different one.
I would agree with all of that. That's why I brought up the French shooting where the guy was like pinned against a barricade. That like so many laws use like a reasonable standard, right? Like, would a reasonable person think their life is in danger? In the French case, I absolutely do think a reasonable person would think they're about to be crushed. In this guy's case, he got out of the way without the use of the gun. The gun didn't help him get out of the way. The lady kept going anyway. She didn't crash until later on, right? Bullets don't like stop you instantly unless like you hit the fucking, like, what do they call it? The fucking T-zone. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's, yeah, I don't know. I still think bad shot, but yeah, the legal thing is going to be a different case. And yeah, I guess this is my question with, Christy Noem's argument is that this was self-defense. He thought his life was in danger, right? So that's why he didn't let her go. Which is the only kind of thing you can say, because you're not just allowed to shoot someone because they're like fleeing the scene. You can't just like unload on them because they're like getting away, right? Like, that's just not how the law works. And so wow, we have we run the gamut. We have ISIS, a terrorist organization. Everyone's in chat.
Hold on, he actually is right. They could have let her go. And by doing that, the officer could have ignored the woman illegally blocking traffic and just went about his way. And then why should we even have police officers at all if they're just going to let crime happen right in front of them?
I don't
do
think
nothing about it.
To steel man that, if that's what he's saying, but to steel man that, I would think he means like the officer didn't have to unload. He could have got out of the way and then pursued, right? And then stop the car like they do normally when someone like takes off from a traffic violation. The cop just doesn't start like shooting the guy in the head when he takes off from a traffic stop, right? They chase him down and they arrest him, right? There's a proper procedure to this. You can't just like kill someone because they're like trying to get away. You know, so I guess so. If it depends what that chatter meant. I guess just depends. Google supremacy clause immunity. Do you know what this is, Tyler?
Yes,
I don't know what this is.
It's being misapplied here. Supremacy clause immunity would mean that the Congress can't do anything to hinder Trump from giving these orders because they're congressionally given to him through the Constitution. So Congress can't block or obstruct him from making these orders. That immunity doesn't carry down all the way down the chain to officers committing crimes on duty. That's not how the immunity works. So if they break a state law when they're in a state, that's not something that has to do like with their official duties, like traffic violations and civil things, they're immune from those. But if they break an actual law and do something criminal, yes, the Supreme Court says the states can do it. It's happened multiple times.
Yeah, see, he's saying this. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't sound like this is accurate from what you're saying, Tyler. That it protects federal officers from state prosecution for crimes committed while performing their federal duties, maybe for lesser things.
Yeah, again, there's examples of ICE officers being charged and convicted, and for federal officers, the FBI, especially during Prohibition, charged and convicted for state-level crimes. So I don't know. I beg to differ.
I mean, it almost because murder is like always a state level crime, right? So it almost has to be that way because otherwise you could just, if you're a federal LEO, you could just like kill anybody and then you could not, right? Because murder is never a federal crime, right? It's always a state crime. Or, well, I don't know if is it always?
No, there is a federal murder. So generally what federal crimes are cross state lines. There's no actual federal crime for like pedophilia.
Right.
Because but there is for trafficking underage kids across state lines. Those are generally handled at the state level. So, like, the separation of powers means that those managed crimes are happening at that level unless they cross state lines. It's really none of the federal government's business. So, if an ICE officer did hypothetically murder somebody in Minnesota, it's up to the state government to go ahead and prosecute that because it's their responsibility.
Anson, I don't know how so many people, including yourself, get this wrong. And Tyler mentioned this earlier. Qualified immunity applies to civil cases. You can't like sue a police officer, right? Unless it's like a supreme like violation of your like constitutional rights. Qualified immunity says nothing about criminal charges. Okay, it says nothing about that. Everyone always somehow mistakes that, but that's not what that means.
Yeah, Anson, you bald bitch.
Get fucked, Anson.
Yeah, get cucked.
Training in this situation, and we'll let the FBI continue the investigation to get it resolved.
Stacey, we're gonna let Tyler has limited time. This is me and Tyler's time, and then I'm opening the panel to anybody. It's just me and Tyler right now. Then we're opening it up. Then we're opening it up.
What I would ask is that as we go forward from here today,
you and
that
I.
we all remember that our job is to have peaceful discussions. I'd encourage our local law enforcement and state law enforcement to work with us. We are going to continue to operate here in Minneapolis and in the state of Minnesota to make sure we're going after dangerous criminals. One of the key focuses that we've had here is a focus on individuals who are sexual predators and are involved in child exploitation. When I was just here yesterday, we arrested individuals who were charged with criminal assault and sexual assault and people that exploited children. Why would you want to keep them on your streets? President Trump has promised to go after the worst of the worst, and that's exactly what we're doing in Minneapolis. By not working with us, Governor Walz and Mayor Frey are putting those criminals and prioritizing them over our children and our grandchildren.
I found the Supreme Court ruling on this, by the way.
So I'll get him the
The thing that Big Soda is talking about?
Yeah, I found it on the Supremacy Clause. So the Supremacy Clause was used to grant immunity to federal officers in some cases. 1890 in Renegal, it was the U.S. Marshal was immune from state murder charges. Now there's two clauses. It needs to be authorized by federal law and necessary and proper to fulfill federal duties. That immunity does not apply if the officer's actions were unlawful, excessive, or outside of the scope of their duties. So it has to be necessary and proper. So what the defense is going to have to prove is, or what the person trying to put him in jail, the prosecution, that's the word, is going to have to prove is that he went above what was necessary for the situation, saying like she was going 1 mile an hour. I don't think that they have that, because as soon as that car got put in drive, that officer had reasonable fear enough to shoot. Reasonable situation to where he shoot. I don't think they have any charges. I think the supremacy clause would protect him in this case.
Wait, you think? Wait. That just that last sentence. What do you?
The supremacy clause would protect him in this case because based on how police regulations are and federal regulations are in terms of violence, a car is considered a deadly weapon. So if somebody puts a car in drive when you're telling them to get out, they're ignoring your lawful orders, they put that car in drive and start going toward an officer, that automatically makes them using it. It's basically like picking up a gun and starting to aim it at the officers. You don't actually
I think it depends though. We've seen this happen in many instances with people like taking off from traffic stops. And if the cop is in front of them and they're like actively like accelerating fast, then sure. But if the car is like going slow enough, then I think there are cases where it's like it's not okay to just like pull out your gun. Like I feel like it depends on. Like I know you asked me before, like what is the speed, but this is why I talked about like what a reasonable person would think. Because if someone is going slow enough and you can just like sidestep, I don't think you're just allowed to that seems excessive to me to mag dump, right? And I think there's cases where people get charged when it's a gray area, and there's some cases where they get away. Just depends. Are they actually blocked? Are they about to be hit? I mean, there's times where cops have been like holding on to the vehicle and like trying to get off and stuff, and it's like there's so many like. I don't know. There's a lot of minutia, I think, that's involved in all this stuff. And yes, I know. Good to see you, Quippy, by the way. I know a 2,000-pound vehicle, but first of all, there's like 4 ICE agents around, right? There's no barricade. There's no embankment that this ICE officer is going to get trapped against. Like, it's hard. It's just hard. Even if the guy like fell down, it's hard for me to imagine that he's going to like, I don't know. Maybe if he fell down, maybe he'd get crushed.
So
I don't know.
Tussis versus Billiot 2023, it was established that speed can be used as a factor in the lethality of the officer, but direction and intent was solidified in Commonwealth versus Solomon that said if the vehicle moves toward the officer, even at slow speeds, it justifies deadly force. So we have 2 conflicting rulings, and I really think I've seen multiple instances where the second one pans out.
It's just, yeah, but I guess I just think it has to depend, because if you're going, like, if the officer is like 50 feet away and you're moving toward him at, let's say, like 5 miles per hour, then it's like, it's probably not justified to like mag up. You probably would catch a charge if you're a cop, right? Like in that case, and I know that's an absurd case, but right. So the distance and the speed have to matter. They just like have to. I don't have any case law on that, but I feel like, I don't want to say I feel. Everyone gets mad when I say I feel, but I think that there would have to be some exception, right? If the cop is 100 meters away, and like it can't just be directionality and then not take into account speed at all, right? There just has to be like some reasonable factor here that is taken into an account, right?
Yeah.
Or do you disagree? What do you think the law says on that? Like, at least in my stupid example, I understand meters away. The person's going like 5 miles per hour, you're probably not allowed to like shoot them as a cop, right?
Yeah, the distance probably has something to do with it as well. If they're just kind of, but yeah, that's also distances are also fact in on threat to the officer. Usually, like they act completely different. I think it's 16 feet. Don't quote me on that, but if you're within 16 feet of them, that's considered like a red zone, and their actions are different than if you're more than 16 feet from them. Or again, I'm making up an arbitrary number. It could be a 12, but
yeah, there's something about that, because I mean they've even done tests. You've probably seen these where like it's shockingly fast how fast someone can like run at you with a knife for you to have the reflexes to like pull out and like shoot them. And I think it's somewhere around that 16 feet. I think that's why they use that, because even if someone has just like a hammer or something, they can close the gap pretty quickly. And
plus,
so, yeah,
you don't get COVID.
That as well. In this case, the distance obviously was very close. I don't think the speed was very much, and there wasn't much obstructions to get out of the way. I don't know how that's going to square out in an actual court. And I do think, based on what we've established, if we're right about interpreting the supremacy clause, then I think there will be a charge, because I think Tim Walz obviously will want to charge this. And so if it's up to him and his AG and stuff, then I think we're going to see charges. So we're going to see this play out in court, which will be interesting.
My guess is that supremacy clause immunity at the end of the day wins. I don't know if that the judge will throw it out based off of that, or if the judge accepts it, the ruling goes through, the person goes to jail, and then the appeals court handles it. But the supremacy, I think that they were within their duties and following the procedures properly.
I just think it's like the one thing that you said, though, is like it doesn't count in cases where it's excessive. This just strikes me as excessive. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he's following proper procedure. They're ignoring lawful orders, acting erratically, and then turning your car into drive and going toward an officer. I think that's more than enough for them to say it was a justified shoot.
Yeah, it's possible. I'm not sure.
So that he knows that we would love to coordinate with him. He doesn't give us access to any information on criminals, let us know who he's detained, doesn't honor our detainers, and has individuals and criminals in his jurisdiction that he won't turn over us today too. Yes.
Got 3.
I
Can't hear the question.
Operating.
Right now, but we can get into the details and the information on that. But the facts of the matter is, he's an experienced officer. He's been in situations like
I
this
can't fucking tell
before,
where they're coming from. Though.
and
They
he
should
certainly
turn off fucking
has
audio.
been out there and
I
followed
swear.
his training today. You know, people need
So
to stop
weird.
using their vehicles as weapons. This domestic act of terrorism to use your vehicle to try to kill law enforcement officers is going to
So
stop.
that's just gonna trigger me every time. Obviously, it's at least we all agree, hopefully in the chat, she wasn't trying to kill the officer. She was trying to obstruct and be a fucking asshole, and she obviously don't do that. Don't do that. You should get arrested. You should go to jail, right? If you're doing what she did. But she was obviously trying to get away. She obviously just didn't want. She wasn't trying. She wasn't. There's so much. Obviously, if you wanted to kill an officer, you're
don't
just
let
rammed
everybody
into the
peek at
officer.
once, though.
I don't think there's any reason to think that she wanted to murk a fucking police officer or an ICE agent. I
How have
mean,
you been, bro?
I don't see that. I think she was obviously trying to get away, and yeah, maybe there was an officer in front of the car, which maybe makes the shoot justified. I just don't like the framing that this was an act of domestic terrorism when she's facing sideways and the cop comes or the ICE agent comes in front of her and she turns the car to try to. She's obviously just trying to get away, which is like still it could be a fuck around and find out, could be a legal shoot, could even possibly be a moral shoot. Okay, that one's hard to swallow for me.
I don't even think
She's not trying to kill anyone.
You don't even need her intent for the law. I don't think. I think just putting the car, ignoring lawful actions and putting the car into drive and going toward the officer was enough. You don't even need to prove her intent. So for her to just assume her intent is to kill officers isn't necessary for the case. It's just like smearing for no reason. Yeah, it's pretty copy.
Right, it just seems egregious. It's like you don't have to call this domestic terrorism and say she's trying to kill LEO to get this case going or to get it dismissed. Like you don't need that. You don't need that. It just seems like a wild thing to say.
Because it's clear that it's being coordinated. People are being trained and told how to use their vehicles to impede law enforcement operations.
Saw him for a split second.
And then to run over anybody who gets in their way while they go out there and try to disrupt peace and public safety.
What the hell? Move to Texas with the wife? Let's fucking go, dude.
I know Governor Walz mentioned some of that earlier in his press conference, but we've got law enforcement officers here that will continue to work, and we're hopeful that the public recognizes that the work that we do every day makes America safe again. With that, we had law enforcement officers that were out there doing an enforcement action. And a vehicle got stuck in the snow, and so they had called for other people to come and help them get that vehicle out. Those officers were trying to free the vehicle when the harassment started, when the protesters were out there impeding their vehicles and preventing them from leaving the scene. I won't speak to that. I will let the FBI decide. They were returning back to headquarters, I believe, to start a new operation, had just completed one. Well, thank you. What's that? I was one of the vehicles that ICE officers were using, but remember, when we operate in a task force model. So we have other federal agencies that work with us, and we're very grateful for that. We have CBP officers, the FBI, DEA, ATF, all of those.
Okay, always got to pause the videos for a super chat. Jason with the $10. Let me hit you with that. Here we go. I had more stringent ROE. Well, I don't know what an ROE is, Tyler. Do you know what that means? Or routines of engagement? Maybe, possibly. I had more stringent ROEs in Iraq and Afghanistan as a Marine infantryman, and later on a defense contractor than U.S. law enforcement has in the U.S. Think about that. I don't know what ROE means. Oh, rules of engagement.
Yeah,
Yes.
looked it up.
I had more stringent rules of engagement. Okay, so you're saying that. Wait, what is this saying? I had more stringent rules of engagement in Iraq and Afghanistan as a Marine infantryman than later on as a defense contractor than U.S. law enforcement has. So you're saying you had tighter things on when you could like pull the trigger than you think U.S. law enforcement has.
Well, I mean, I could think about that. You also have significantly more lethal, like you have fully automatic weapons, you have jets with bombs that could take out entire cities and things like. Yes, you should have a stricter set of guidelines than just cops with handguns. Absolutely.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like with the U.S. like with law enforcement, it's like you're killing American citizens. Though, if you're in Iraq, it's like you're fighting, let's say, the Taliban or whatever the fuck is going on in Iraq back in the day. You know, whoever, you're killing somebody. You know, that's not American citizens. You would think that it would be like really strict if you're like gonna, you know, game end an American. You know.
Yeah,
that would be the
countries,
counter.
You have tons of just innocent civilians. You have tons of people that are friendlies on your side, like Afghanistan in particular, that had all sorts of collaborators and like people that were there that wanted to get their families out and whatnot. Joe Biden left them all behind when he left. So, there was, so you have to have these rules of engagement because not only you're representing the U.S. on the world stage and you're kind of our reputation when you're out there, but on top of that, you have significantly more lethal ways to end mass amounts of people than the U.S. citizens and the police have access to. So you should probably be under a tighter leash. It does make sense with the sheer amount of firepower, and also I think it's also probably easier to get away with like actual like war crimes when you're in Iraq than it is in like the US. Like this one, there's like, I mean, Stacy is getting so mad at me because he's saying I'm not like showing like all 7 camera angles. And it's like, yeah, so that's the thing. When we have something that happens here, we have a lot of like boots on the ground footage. When we have something like the famous like the collateral damage video of like in Iraq, I think it was Iraq, the WikiLeaks one where they like I don't know if it was an Apache helicopter. I can't remember the story. You know what I'm talking about, Tyler? The famous video where they killed people that they thought were aid workers. It was like a big scandal. The video was called like, I think, Collateral Damage or something like that. It was like a famous thing that was released to WikiLeaks. They tried to prosecute on it, and it was from the war in Iraq. And it's like all we have is footage from the actual like whatever it was, the helicopter or whatever that was like shooting missiles at the vehicle of apparently innocent people. I think it was journalists, or so they say. And so it's like it's a lot harder to prosecute. Oh yeah, this one. Yes, thank you. They killed like it was a Reuters photographer or reporter or something. Yes, it was Reuters. I used to believe that shit, and then I see this current war that's going on in the Middle East, and I see like they're arresting journalists, they're killing journalists, and it's like the ones that they arrested and killed at the beginning of the war, the ones that came into Israel on October 7th when they attacked and were helping or filming with them. It's like, yeah, those people came into the country with an invasion. Like, they were coordinating with the invaders. Yes, they should probably be. It's still breaking in, even if you didn't, like, grape and, pillage. But it's still, yes, you should be arrested for that. If you're collaborating with a terrorist group, then, yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of them that are doing both. I just don't fall for it anymore.
Jason, you have misheard what I am saying. Okay, so lol, I'm not talking about calling an Artie or a drone strike, but nice sticking up for LE while dancing around calling me a war criminal. I don't know if that's. I'm not calling you. I'm not saying. Look, I'm pro the troops. Okay, I'm definitely not calling you a war criminal. Definitely, all I'm saying is that it's easier it's easier to get footage in America than it is in the military, right? So I think it makes, that's all I was hypothesizing, that it's maybe that's one of the reasons why you have more strict rules of engagement, because you don't have the same level of like footage that can just be released. Whereas this case, we already have like multiple angles. We're gonna get body cam, we're gonna get all this stuff. Whereas in like some, you know, shithole country, you know, it's like it's not as easy to necessarily go over footage and what happened. That's all I'm saying.
If you notice
Definitely
in his
not calling you a
response-
war criminal, to be clear.
If you notice in his response, he made up something you didn't say, and he left out the point that I put in, was fully automatic weapons and grenades and things that the U.S. doesn't have. I wasn't just talking about artillery and drones, but even if, same fucking deal. Like, you shouldn't have that ready to you without a higher level of regulation. Absolutely. Like, a fully automatic machine gun is not something you can get in the United States just willy-nilly. It takes years of process, background checks, all that shit. But if you're handed one, then yeah, you should have higher regulations against you. Yes, I agree.
And I would think that even, this is me just guessing, but I would think when we look at like SWAT and things that do have like more heavy artillery and stuff, they probably do have like a stricter rules of engagement, right? They probably really like consider that. I'm assuming, I don't actually know this, but I'm assuming that they would, when we're actually bringing in like the heavy guns into a situation, right? Because you don't want some like terrible thing to happen. This is just crazy, Quippy. A fully automatic machine gun is not that much more deadly than a semi. That's insane. Even Las Vegas shooter, there's a reason he used a fucking bump stock. It's because being able to fire faster means you can kill more people. Okay, I don't know. That's an insane comment to me, but I don't know. Okay, we only got like 2 minutes or 1 minute and a half left, so we might as well kill this
All working
video.
this every day in a task force model, and we appreciate it. We'd love to have the state police, and we'd also love to have the Minneapolis police chief and his team be alongside of us while we're out there doing those enforcement operations. With that, we'll get you more information as it is revealed, but thank you and everybody. Let's work together to make sure that we can continue to help the city be safer, get more criminals off the streets, and ensure that our public has the opportunity to pursue the American dream in a city they can be proud of. Thank you.
A wild press conference. A wild press conference. I'm just gonna say that. Tyler, can I full screen you for like 30 seconds while I pee really quickly?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm gonna tell your audience about some shit. Listen.
Yeah, teach them.
Listen, I'm always right. Let's look at what some of these people that were bitching said here. Car was stuck in the snow. The agents went over to help. It was implied to the woman's. No, this wasn't the woman's car. This was another car in front. She was blocking them from driving when she saw them pulled over, so they got out of their car. It's the way Gnome made it sound, anyways. I mean, why would that make sense to have more rules if there's more cameras? Like, you don't need more rules. You don't need more regulations. You just need the necessary ones, and then you have so much to see. Yeah, exactly. What's up? Anson knows this is my show now, everybody. I'm gonna drink my bottle of wine right out of the bottle, like a wine mom. See, that's the thing. I don't think you need to prove her intent. I don't think her intent was to harm the officer. I don't think that's a condition of this, though. If you had to prove her intent, then maybe you'd have the defense would have a better case, but all they have to show based off of precedent that we were looking at earlier is that the car was put into drive and drove at the officer, which it's indisputable that happened. Even if she turned it, he already had his gun out, was shooting. I had his gun out, was about to fire when the car finally just started to turn, and I watched that shit in super slow motion. It's only like a half a second between the car turning and the first shot. She was going right at him and then slightly started to turn. So I think that's enough. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think the intent matters. I don't think it does. But that's why I don't like when Christy Nome keeps talking about the intent to kill law enforcement agent and domestic terrorism and stuff. But yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it ultimately matters. And also, yes, you were right. At least from what I know, that about the person that was killed wasn't stuck in the snow. There was a previous incident of people stuck in the snow. She decided to block. She wasn't stuck there or anything. That would make the situation worse if she was stuck, because then it's like she's not even trying to do anything. No, she was trying to obstruct. And as Mr. Mister says, good to see you, Mr. Mister. Obstruction of justice is a crime. She was doing a crime.
The facts.
She was an absolute shit. Like, to be clear, I still think it's not a good shot morally at least. I don't think it's a good shot, but it's, yeah, she's obviously doing a crime. She should have been arrested. I don't know if she should have been necessarily killed, but you know, it just depends. You know, I wish maybe there's more, like the other angle is like so hard to see. Like you see him kind of get hit a little bit, but like, I don't know. And like, I'd want to see the hospital records. I don't know if that's going to come up in court. I don't know if it can. It probably would, right, Tyler? If this goes to court, then he probably would use that. Or could he hide that? Like if he didn't want to, let's say the injuries is just bruising, he'd be like, well, under like FIPA or whatever or HIPAA or whatever, you know, it's called something different in Canada. So I can never remember.
I don't know if HIPAA would be able to overrule. I do know if the defense tried to bring it in, the judge would say, like, what happened to you? And if it was nothing, that would hurt them. If the prosecution tried to bring it in as saying that he didn't even sustain injury, I don't think it would be relevant. I think it just has to be the car moving forward. I think that was just a PR thing she threw out there so for people to chew on in the public. I think it's completely irrelevant to like what I've read the laws to be. You got somebody in chat saying she humiliated them by blocking the roads. They wanted to arrest her. That's the same assuming intent that Kristi Noem was doing about this woman trying to murder police. Just assuming you know what's going on. I read their mind, and I know they felt humiliated. Not that she was committing a crime, and it's literally their job to arrest her, and Supreme Court backed them that they could arrest at the state level if people are doing things to impede their investigations and arrests. So it's their literal fucking job to do it, but no, that can't be it. It has to be that they were humiliated, because why not? It makes you feel better to say.
I mean, even in the comment, she's blocking the road. Okay, so that's why is she blocking the road? She's like, she's obstructing. Okay, that is illegal. And I'm assuming this is Anson, but Anson, I need you to flash me because could be. I'm assuming I've answered in the back chat, so I'll bring you up. Yeah, this is Anson. Okay, I'm pulling you up. Well, no, I'm not saying. Well, this is the thing. Okay, yeah, I'm not saying, Jason. I'm not saying impeding investigation. So, but this is why I think it's a bad shot. I don't think it's a good shot. But the argument on the other side is not that because you're impeding an investigation or obstructing that you're allowed to mag dump.
We were very clear about it. This person's being intentionally bad faith and leaving out the entire argument to be pedantic and pretend like that's it. It's intentionally. Don't fall for the weaponized stupidity. If you want the fucking actual argument, rewind the video for fucking 30 seconds, you asshole.
It's true. Self-defense. That's all. That's the argument. Okay, just to give you a little clue. That's the argument on the other side. I still think it's a bad shot. That's my opinion. But how are you doing, Anson?
Yeah, I'm just enjoying life. You know, it was nice to see Kristi Noem on the screen. I'm a huge fan of that.
It's the only reason you like Kristi Noem, isn't it, Anson?
What, that she was in charge of the deletion of that offender? Yeah.
No, that because she's the same reason that Tyler said she's a DEI hire, which is true. She's,
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, the only reason she's there is because she's hot and she has a good political constituency.
And she's good at talking generally, unless it's about her in her book. By the way, when the Haitians were eating the cats and dogs, Kristi Noem came in and personally executed all of everybody's animals so they didn't have to suffer.
That's true, yeah.
She's a humanitarian.
All right, I gotta go prep for the next stream here in like 10 minutes. So you got Anson to keep everybody entertained now.
All right, thank you, Tyler. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time here.
Tits.
Show my tits?
Yeah.
Oh, I can do that. Yeah. I showed confluences yesterday.
Oh.
Tyler, wait, before you go, put your thing. Can you put your thing in the private chat and I'll put it in the chat and tell everyone to sub to you?
Oh yeah.
If they want goated streams, panels, political discourse.
Yeah, I got a panel tonight on the fraud. We're doing the fraud.
Oh, the Somalians?
Yeah. You can get Stacy up here now. Stacy, I permit it. Alright, I'm gonna turn this off for about 5 minutes or 15 minutes while we wait. Intermission, everybody take a pee. Touch your wee-wee. What are we gonna do? Let's leave something on here. Intermission.
What's up, Tyler? How are you?
Hey, cuz, what's good?
Man, I don't know. And I'm just trying to figure out what in the hell Gibbs has got going on here, man. He said to come in here, he'd move us. He hasn't moved us. What's going on, man?
What the hell?
What the hell?
I'm on my last day. After this, no more weed. I got to pass a drug test, so it was fun
Dude,
for like a few days.
I told you to stop that nonsense.
Oh, I don't drink, so like I gotta get my jollies in somehow every now
I don't
and then.
drink.
Oh,
So what?
You're a square. That's what I responded with when you said that. A square.
I'm a square. I'm the
Yeah.
coolest dude you know, bro.
Yeah, you don't drink or smoke.
Yeah, I don't drink, smoke, do drugs, gamble.
I trust you slightly less than I trust something that bleeds for 7 days and doesn't die.
Why is Fabian
That's
Liberty
such
got a
a-
picture? Why am I not? What's going on here? I feel abused.
What? What are you talking about?
But you're on camera and I'm apparently not. Oh, okay, here we go. I think I got it. Why is this all messed up?
I use this room
I don't
for
know.
cereal
There we
killing.
go. Now it's working. There we go.
You missing some berms or something?
Nah, I guess. I don't know. There we go. All right. I was talking to my chat too. So now I gotta attach this.
Oh, all you hear is me. God damn it. Hold on 1 second.
No, I can hear Tyler too.
No, I'm talking about my chat.
Yeah, I get that too. Because it's freaking Discord. Lame. All right, while I'm doing this, hang on, I gotta mute.
Oh, hold on. I know what it is. Can you guys talk for me real quick?
Yeah, I'm still here. Gibbs, Grid's over there
Alright.
doing a performance. There you go. This is the room I do my serial killing in, as you can see by my wall.
Now you need that kitchen whiteboard. The blood just wipes right off like magic mark, like dry erase.
Plastic on the floors, it helps.
Yeah, that's what's up.
There's nothing in this room yet. We're furnishing the rest of the house. This is our second bedroom.
You
so-
got a house?
No, apartment, sorry.
I was like, damn, son. All right, let's make sure we can. All right, let's
I'm
see. what
left
we got.
wing, so like definitions, whatever, dude.
All right, so, all right, I need to know, chat. Can you hear everybody, including me? Say something, Tyler.
Something Tyler.
All right, can you hear that, chat? Chat, help me out. Can we tell these motherfuckers to kick, rock, and fuck off? Yes, we can. Not you motherfuckers, the Democrat motherfuckers. There you go. All right. So now everybody can hear me. Everybody can see me. Now we need is the rest of the panel, and we can start baiting.
I've already started baiting.
Hey,
for
you
the
guys are
record.
live on my end, by the way.
Yeah, you're live here too. I'm sorry. What's up, Wick?
Fine.
just-
Not much.
I feel like-
Give me a second. I'm trying to get my camera set up. One moment, please.
I mean, I can see you.
No, I mean for my people. Okay.
Someone
Oh, I
chat
got you.
in my chat goes, now that there's a lull, who else is headed to Minnesota to get some free electronics tonight?
Oh, damn.
Oh, is
Well,
a
have
war
you
about to
guys
pop
seen the-
off?
have you
Time
guys
to
seen
start
the footage?
looting.
Have you guys seen the
Looting.
footage of the
Looting and
protests
scooting.
and stuff? There's aerial
yeah.
footage. There's thousands of
I
people.
mean,
in
I've
the
seen
street.
some of it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what has occurred since I started streaming? I was talking about other shit, so I haven't seen any of that. But yeah,
All right, just checking chat. You guys can hear everybody. Somebody said they couldn't hear Scott earlier, but he was muted talking to his chat. So
It's a feature, not a bug.
Wick, I didn't realize you were having a panel on it today too.
Yeah, apparently. Well, it's not my panel. It's Gibbs.
No, I thought I was talking about what you were just on. I would have got my wiggles out today, so I don't have to hold this in my brain for
Oh,
4
no.
days.
That was just an impromptu thing. I was like, I want to talk about it, so I talked about it. Now I'm
Sweet.
not. Okay.
Well,
I'll see you Monday.
I'm not on the Gibbs panel. I was just crashing, but love you, Scott and Tyler and
mean-
Grid. I haven't met you on a panel yet, I don't think, but love you too.
really?
We might have been on one, but I've seen you in the Gibbs circles.
Okay.
You're good. You're good, peeps. Peace.
I mean, people say that, but
Yeah, give or take. Yeah.
yeah.
Gamantis prays says to tell the unreasonable man to say, fuck you. So I'm passing that on from my chat.
Oh, he said "fuck you" to me.
No, he wants
Gamantis prays said to say, tell him I said fuck you. So
Oh, I misheard that. I
Fair
thought
enough,
he was
fair
asking
enough.
for you to say it. Could you
Mantis,
say
yeah,
it?
I don't know who that is, but okay. All right.
Oh, there we go.
go to the loo.
oh, what happened? Where are
We moved you in.
1 second.
All that work you did on your camera, redo it.
I'll be right back. I'm gonna. Use
You
the
should be able to
restroom
just.
quick.
It shouldn't. No, you shouldn't have to redo it. You should just be able to like switch the scene.
Shit. Now I got to do this all over again.
Ah, the Chingada guys, we got to teach you how to use Streamlabs.
I got to teach you how to use Streamlabs so you'll quit using Discord.
Yeah, but I can do more stuff. Never mind. We're not gonna have this fight again.
Which
I
have
mean, you don't
guys
want to
used-
lose this fight again. That's
Have
what.
you guys used cans with strings attached to them?
Potentially. You know, I'm not.
Listen.
I'm not going to rule it out.
I'm tired of your attitude. Listen, if I had
I have
strings,
an attitude.
my camera couldn't do this bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
I have just one attitude. I feel like I've got more than one attitude.
Probably.
Gibbs, how the hell you been, man? You've been. You just haven't really been like.
I've been busy.
Yeah, you've been busy, man. Something.
Yeah, it's been a minute. I haven't talked to anybody since I moved.
You've talked
Yeah.
to me.
Well, chatted a little bit, but I haven't been on any. This is my second live thing. I did something with Confluence earlier.
Everybody ready? We all ready though? I guess we're waiting on Fabian.
Yeah, he said he'd be right back.
All right, we're just waiting on Sociologic. He said he'd be late. That's
Yeah.
So is it just me versus the world here? What's going on?
it looks like at the moment until Sociologic is in here, but I'll back you up until then.
Yeah,
I'll be.
Well, I mean,
I'll play the
Tyler's
lib.
interest.
I'll,
Right?
I'll be
I
the
had
lib
plenty
until.
of bones to pick with Grid and Rosa Rob last time, so
Yeah, but you lost on those bones. You want to pick those bones again?
that was the chat we had prior. No, last time I held my own. Somali second generationers are the fastest growing in terms of IQ and earnings between the first generation counterparts of any immigrant group in the country.
All right. All right. Let's kick this off. Well, give me a break, guys. How y'all doing today? Hope y'all are doing well. We got one more coming. He's gonna be a little late, but we're here to talk about should the Democrats be prosecuted or persecuted or whatever words you want to use for all the rampant fraud that's occurring all over the nation. Wick is waiting on his backup, so I might back him up a little bit more, be a little more lenient to him than y'all, since there's 3 of y'all, 1 of him. Let's start with Tyler here and give us a kickoff here.
Average debate enjoyer. I am back from like a 1-month hiatus. I have a cold right now. My Kuai background is so Kuai, and check me out on YouTube.
All right, thank you so much, Fabian.
Yep, I am Fabian Liberty. You can find me, just Google Fabian Liberty, I guess. Find me on YouTube and X. Anarcho-capitalist content, libertarian objectivist content on my channel, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you to everybody that showed up on time. Ali, where are you at? So I appreciate you guys, and I'm excited for tonight. Should be fun.
Being fair to Ollie, it was work. He actually has a decent excuse. He's coming. All right, Greg, go ahead.
I'm Grid One Motorsports. I'm an unreasonable man. You can find me at an unreasonable man on YouTube mostly. I also have a new channel called Gun Prattle.
Oh shit, good call.
We talk about shockingly guns all the time.
Yeah, I'll put it over
24/7.
Wick.
And it's really cool. So you should check that out as well. That's on Kick, Rumble, YouTube, all of it. It's on all of them. And it's gonna be a good debate tonight. I think it's gonna be fun.
All right, so it's our token lefty for today. We got Wick here to defend his dims against the rampant fraud. What do you thoughts?
I'm Wick. So hi, you can find me at Wick TV on YouTube, Twitch, all that bullshit. Are we doing opening statements, or we just? What are we doing?
We can go backwards.
Okay, I can.
Go ahead and give us the
I
opening.
can just
kick
give
us
you my
off.
opening thoughts on the subject at hand. Should Democrats be prosecuted or persecuted for all fraud everywhere? Obviously not. I think that there is obviously fraud that has been done, and the perpetrators of that fraud should be held
We're
accountable.
just kicking off right
I think
now.
that the
This is
people
my first
who
panel
have
back.
been prosecuted and
Oh,
convicted for
debate-ish panel,
fraud,
yes.
crypto fraud, and all these things should not be pardoned by the Trump administration. That should not have happened, but it did. I am not here to defend Somalian fraud. Obviously, if you can prove it and there's evidence and you bring it forth to a court, that's all well and good. Have at it. But what I am here is to caution against this kind of veiled innuendo that often happens in these things, where people put out a YouTube video like Nick Shirley did that has incorrect facts, and then this prompts a lot of people to make a lot of assumptions. Look, there very well may be fraud in some of these places, but that Nick Shirley video didn't prove that. Now again, I'm all for opening up investigations if you have solid evidence, but this idea that Democrats are the party of fraud and they're doing all the fraud everywhere and that they're all looking the other way, I just don't think that the facts support that claim. That's my position. Go ahead.
All right, thank you so much, Grid. Go ahead, give us your thoughts.
Yeah, so I mean, as you know, just from my worldview, I think that it's obviously there's a due process. The due process needs to be followed. Ought we prosecute Democrats if they're responsible for this? Absolutely. Should they be held accountable? Absolutely. I guess the court of public opinion is not as relevant to me as maybe it is to some others. I just really don't care. I'm waiting to see if any charges, if charges will get filed and how far up the ladder they're going to go. We know that for this type of fraud to have occurred, it has to go pretty high. My concern is that the wagons are going to get circled, and Walls will never get prosecuted. If he had supposedly he's had a part in it, anybody else that's had a part in it above just the base level of junior Democrat Party guy is never going to see the inside of a courtroom. I would have the same problem if it was a Republican or anybody really. But I think the Democrats have especially finessed this system out. And what I've seen, the facts that I've been presented thus far seem to point to industrial level fraud on the American taxpayer. And yeah, absolutely, somebody should pay for that. blood, sweat, and tears.
Introduction
So
real quick.
that's all I got.
Thank you so much, Fabian.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm gonna.
Get away introduction. Scott's gonna go. then
I have
can
so
go,
much
then
I
I'll
want
get
to say
up.
on this. Let me try and condense it. So first and foremost, we're here, to talk about the Somalian fraud because it's in the court of public opinion, as you said, right?
I got
Because
8
this Nick
viewers.
Shirley video went viral.
7.
But
So,
this
yeah,
is,
7 people. Say hi.
obviously it was, citizen journalism, doesn't have the same connections and the same,
7 people can hear you.
standards as does, major media publications, which have, have been for 20 years. We've been seeing
Oh, very
how they
nice.
put
Thank
out
you.
nothing but garbage and misinformation
Yeah.
and lies constantly, right? It's so funny when someone's like, well, the New York
done after
Times, it's like,
tonight.
oh, okay, so you
I
read
gotta pass the
misinformation.
drug test.
Cool.
So I'm gonna go smoking.
We're talking about this because fraud is rampant
I'm
throughout
about
the
to get my
entirety of the
introduction.
United
What's
States.
that?
And the welfare system in and of itself
No, she
is
didn't.
designed for fraud. That is why it is made. It is not made to help poor people, right? And we know this. And I can prove this to you unequivocally, very simply.
Pussy shit.
And the way I can prove this to you is that we spend $1.4 trillion in the last year on welfare systems
You can't
as a
roll,
whole.
can you?
And there are 19.8 million American households that are defined as poverty or poor.
Just keep the dogs quiet.
If we were to take that
That's
money
the
and
worst
redistribute it
part
with
for
no welfare systems, no daycare clinic gets this, NGO gets this to build housing, no TANF food stamps, landlords get kickbacks, all these other programs. We get rid of all these programs and we simply redistribute this money. Every single one of those 19.8 million poor families would get $70,000 a year in a check from the government. $70,000 a year. The money's not going to poor people. They are breadcrumbs of a system that is designed to buy votes, to enrich and to enrich the wealthy elite as they use programs and philanthropy and NGOs and their preferred vendors and bureaucracy to bleed the middle class out of existence. Welfare in and of itself, these Democrats absolutely, of course, they should go to jail, right? If what we're hearing from the congressional committee hearing today, where they were threatening people that were whistleblowers, where they were telling whistleblowers that they were going to lose their job. The claim, if those claims are true, that they were asking them in interviews when they attempted to whistleblow, well, I need to know where your kids go to school, and I need to know where you drop them off and pick them up on the school bus if you want to be a whistleblower. Where we are having, all of these things shut down, where the DHS in Minnesota transferred from criminal proceedings and hearings and then changed the word fraud to overbilling to determine whether or not maybe they overbilled and we should get some of that money back instead of investigating fraud. This has been a rampant system. And the reason it's rampant and the reason we're talking about it isn't just Nick Shirley. It's just Minnesota is a special case because it's the Somalians. And because it's the Somalians, the average IQ of a Somalian is 70, right? 1 out of 6 Somalians has a functional IQ of someone with Down syndrome. They're over 87% of them are on some form of welfare. And it ties with the immigration issues that we are discussing, where people are talking about people from third world countries with horrific cultures like that in Somalia, where they're tribal. And it isn't, and this isn't a black thing, right? Somalia, because of their tribal culture, obviously Africans tend to have a lower IQ than Europeans and Asians and Jews, etc. But it is specific to Somalia because their tribal culture has created inbreeding for, over 200 years. And so they're the most ethnically and genetically homogenous country in the world, right? So there's a lot of inbreeding and there's an incredibly low IQ. And they're really bad at the fraud. And it's because, only 1 out of 40 of them has the intellect of an average American, right? The other 39 out of 40 are dumber than the average American. 1 out of 6 roughly are going to be equivalent to IQ as someone with Down syndrome. And the average person is going to be 2 standard deviations below the mean, which is, highly predictive of criminal behavior, of an inability to be a functioning member of society. Obviously there will be breakaways. Obviously some people are going to be intelligent. Obviously some people are just going to have a good heart and they're going to be hard workers despite the fact that they have a low IQ. But as a whole, as a community, they are deeply, not incapable of being able to articulate their positions or engage in critical thinking. And that's why you see things like Leering Center. And that's why the fraud is so blatantly obvious and easy to discover, because they simply lack the intellect to be able to engage in fraud in a way that isn't obvious upon just an initial inspection. And so obviously there's fraud everywhere.
Jeez, is he still
Obviously
going?
the system is designed to enrich the wealthy elite, and there's fraud.
Take a
Obviously
breath,
the
Scott.
the consequence of this is the destruction of the middle class. And I think welfare, this is a prime time to really showcase that what welfare really is. It is a eugenics program designed to decrease the fertility and birth rate of white middle class people in America, squeeze them out to where they can't afford homes, they can't afford businesses, they can't afford to compete with the wealthy elite, and to increase the breeding and the voting power and the political power of those at the very bottom of society, to create a two-tiered system where the wealthy elite can engage in ruling over the rest of
You
us.
think he got his whole
And it's not a
argument out here in
feature,
the
it's
fucking
not a bug,
introduction,
it's a
but he's got
feature.
more.
And I hope people begin to realize this by seeing the absurdity and the deep levels of corruption in Minnesota fraud, the scandal that we have today.
I just want you all to know, before we went live, I actually started a polling bet with a few people. And
Was this like the director's extended cut version of an opening statement? What's going on?
Take a breath.
I
dude.
guess, yeah, I guess, but that's not even the part I wanted to take a bet on. So I took a bet, and the bet was with about 10 people, and we gave odds, and I put it through my little algorithm over how long it would take before IQ came up. And my bet was at 20 minutes, and about 4 or 5 people said we wouldn't get past opening, so it looks like I lost some money. Thank you, Fabian, for bringing IQ up within 12 minutes. My money was also on Grid to bring it up, so I didn't hit the parlay either.
I was going to. I was
hit the parlay, yeah.
the main
Are we
argument.
doing like let's get through the
Let's go to
openings, 'cause
Tyler.
I
Go
have
ahead,
a
Tyler.
lot
Go
to
ahead.
say
Yeah, go ahead,
to
Tyler. I know you do. Go
that,
ahead.
That
Oh,
monologue.
don't you
but
worry, I'm
give
about to get to a lot of it. So,
Yeah.
So starting with social or actually, let's start with. Can we start with the Somalis first? I'm going to stand up for my Nubian brothers and sisters here and
Oh,
first
Jesus
say
Christ.
that the Somalis that come to the United States do so with compassion-based immigration. If we want to, in an hour or two, get to an argument over compassion versus merit-based immigration, we can. But that's the reason we hear people generally like a small percentage of our immigration being based around compassion and not all based off of merit. Otherwise, actually would hurt merit. But the reason of these people being here go from some of the lowest IQ, lowest earners in the first generation to see the most massive jump in the second generation. They essentially become acclimated. And unlike most of the work visas we have come to the United States, they stay. They stay long term. They have lived here generationally, and they actually assimilate long term. Whereas again, we bring in more workers based off of merit. Those workers take that money, they send it back home to their families where they actually want to live long term. So generally having these people here is a good. Pigeonholing 70, 80 cases of fraud to an entire population of people and using it as an excuse to attack them on completely unrelated subjects is why the accusation of racism keeps getting thrown around. We can criticize these people doing fraud. I'm going to go a different route with it. I'm going to say this is par for the course of what we see with the Democratic Party taking funding, giving it to NGOs, and receiving kickbacks for it. They receive kickbacks in all of their campaigns. Ilhan Omar wrote the Meals Act. She introduced it herself, and that was the exact policy that was used to create this fraud, and the fraud was going on by people that were contributing to her campaign before she even wrote the act, long before they got their money. So it does show that they were in bed together. I don't think we're ever going to get that concrete link, just like the Buffalo Billion, just like other instances of fraud with like in California where I think like $10 billion is unaccounted for. We're not going to see arrests anywhere but like it stops with the chief of staff. You're not going to see Cuomo arrested for the Buffalo Billion. You're not going to see Newsom arrested. You don't see Chris Christie arrested when he shut down that bridge. You see his top people get arrested. So we're never going to see the heads that we want from this. But at the end of the day, the Democratic abuse of NGOs is probably the biggest story here. They got kickbacks from almost all these groups, major groups, not every individual instance, but all these major groups that were doing the fraud were donating to the campaigns of the people pushing the policy, and it's still to the people defending them today. YouTubers going in, and doing amateur reporting probably hurt the story more than it helped it. That guy probably did more harm than good at the end of the day. The only thing I got from that video was that somebody was yelling, "It's ICE, it's ICE." Like, we can suddenly evade federal law enforcement doing their constitutionally obligated job and not open the door while we're receiving federal funds? Fuck that. You hear it's ICE, you better open that motherfucking door. You get our federal money. That's all I got.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, and so we will talk about the smaller fraud. I'm going to turn it over to Wick because I know he's going to have umbrage with a bunch of what y'all said. However, we're going to talk about a lot of the fraud because there seems to be a lot of fraud. So let's start with the smaller fraud and we'll go from there. Go ahead, Wick. Kick us off.
So first of all, I'm not entirely. My problem with this is this seems to be a vehicle that people are using to kind of wedge in other issues there, because we're not talking about fraud specifically here. And I think that Fabian Liberty brought up a whole bunch of things where he wants to attack the welfare state as a whole through this. A lot of people, and I'm not saying anyone here is doing this, but a lot of people want to attack immigration as a whole through this. And a lot of people
You're kind
want
of inexorably
to
tied to this story, though, right?
yeah, but if I may finish, right? Like, it's being tied to the story. Like, we can look at the biggest case of fraud in America, at least in recent history, and that's the PPP loans, right? Back in 2021, we had over some reports, if you include the EIDC stuff in there, like the emergency defense thing, it gets up to 200 billion. That dwarfs the amount of fraud that we do here. But no one talks about that because they can't use it to go after their favorite bugaboo, immigrants, right? But because it is
libertarian here, we love shit on the PPP loans.
Here's the thing.
Let Wick finish.
And I'll let you guys go. I promise, right? But my whole premise here, okay, is twofold. One, that this is being used as a vehicle to attack immigrants, and the same attention isn't being paid to the other types of fraud that are going on, right? And I think it's very telling that that's the case. And two, right, that when we have a media ecosystem that accused a Capitol Police officer of being the Jan 6 pipe bomber based on a gate analysis that the Blaze TV did, and it turns out they were totally wrong, they got the wrong person. So one, you have the whole story about Haitians in Ohio stealing pets to eat the cats and the dogs. Turned out to be totally false, pushed by J.D. Vance. It was wrong. When you have people who falsely accused the Palestinian student of being the Brown shooter, right, and killing those 11 or 12 students at the Brown shooting, and it turns out that that was totally wrong. At what point do we stop taking these people seriously when they continuously, every time it seems, get things wrong? When do we start saying that's all bullshit? Now, again, like I said, there very well may be fraud at these places. If you find it, prosecute it. I don't still see evidence from the Shirley video.
But before Fabian gets started, I got just a couple of things. First, I don't think that the whole welfare is the issue. I don't think Fabian was saying that. I didn't get that at all from what he said. It's just this system is designed to be abused, and these people abused it, and that seems to be the fact since people are being prosecuted for that. You're welcome to say that the YouTube guy calling attention to it is wrong. That's fine. But I don't believe that you can say that if people are being prosecuted for it, that it probably didn't happen. I don't see where we get A to B. And I really got to take. I got to.
Hold on. Did I say that though? Did I say that there was?
You literally said welfare state is not the issue. Welfare is not the issue, and that Fabian going after bringing it up is not.
Because hold on, Fabian said that it was designed to decrease the fertility rate of white people.
Agreed.
Well,
yes.
But do you think that's true?
Money.
Do you think the welfare system was designed to
piece.
increase
He
the
said like a
fertility
lot
rate
of
of white
different
people?
things. I didn't care about the white people part. I only cared about the money part that we're actually talking
Well,
about.
that's what I was responding to. Just to
Yeah. I mean, I'm focused on the topic. I don't care about any of the rest of it.
Hold on. Let me reframe this. I'm gonna play the Trump soothsayer because I feel like I do that a lot now because for whatever reason, maybe they're good or bad. But so I know we're gonna talk about this on Friday on Wix. Check it out; it's gonna be good. But we're going to the administration has been pushing a larger narrative, and the narrative is that
rest of them,
it not only is it
that ignores
immigration,
the point and
but
keeps going.
it's kind of what Tyler was alluding to with the NGOs going out,
Yeah,
and then
well,
it's
yeah.
coming back in and funding their campaign, and then they're using immigrants
But a
to
lot-
like
that was
have
different
illegal
than just
voting,
the
and they get the
Russians, like,
welfare, and
yeah,
they
the
basically are
hood
shipping in
people,
voting.
their
That's the
battalions,
argument
so
that
there
they're
were
making.
A lot of them that were
Like, does anybody here see evidence of that?
so.
But I don't think that was Wick's point.
I know that's not Wick's point.
Yeah. But before we get too far into that,
I
a
also
couple of
made the
things.
point in the last
What
panel
Tyler
like
talked
that.
about. So I'm going to take a little bit of issue with the first generation Somali glow up that you're trying to push. Yeah, look, the difference between working at a car wash and working at McDonald's is not a great leap there, pal. So I mean, I just don't. I mean, you can't make that. Look, these guys aren't working on Wall Street, brother. Like, you're trying to make it sound like they make this great generational leap. But again, I just don't see how you're getting there one
People
with the
doing
other.
the fraud were doctors. This is silly.
I don't believe that.
Yeah.
I don't believe that that's true. I think you've smoked a little too much wacky weed today. Second, I don't really care that Omar
Like that
sponsored-
the case of that judge threw out, because it was, quote, circumstantial evidence, even though the state, even though that's all cases on fraud are basically circumstantial evidence.
Too.
Because like circumstantial evidence is everything other than direct evidence, testimony, right? So financial records are circumstantial evidence.
This is Trump's dick, by the way.
That case that kind of went viral because the judge threw it out. The individual in that case that defrauded the Medicare system was a doctor, right? So many of the people that were involved in the Medicare fraud are doctors. Right,
he just wants to call them racist.
There are plenty of
In
doctors that are committing
reality,
fraud
if you're
as well.
linking
Yeah, I was just pointing out
70
that
Somalis doing something to the entire
Tyler was trying to
Somali
put this great
population.
spin on it that these Somalis come over, and then the first generation, the next thing you know, they're like they're airline pilots for Delta or something, and I just don't buy that at all. The Ilhar Omar bill, I don't really care about.
Some of them do.
I understand that was fraud, but what I did care about, what I did find really interesting was the low level arrest. Yes, you're right. You're 100% right, and that echoes kind of what I said about where we know that there's obviously fraud, right? I mean, the money's gone. They don't know where it went. There's obviously fraud. You're correct, I believe, that nobody above a certain level is going to get touched. That's how our politics in this country operate. But it kind of plays to the prompt of, ought they not be prosecuted? Should there be a political force field around these people?
Sure, can I just
because
ask
I
what
just don't
your
see that.
evidence is that Ilhan Omar, Tim Walz, or any of the big people that you want prosecuted? What's your evidence that they were?
I didn't say who I
either
wanted
We're not
prosecuted.
gonna
engaged in
find it.
fraud? Can I finish my question? Either engaged in fraud or that they knew about the fraud and did nothing. Because I have evidence, right, that Tim Walz specifically put forth what was it? Quite a bit of money in 2019 in order to add funding for new investigators, data analytics, fraud
million or
tracking at
something?
DHS, tighten oversight at CCAP, right? Like, they took steps, and you can argue that they weren't enough, but they took steps to combat these frauds. And I do also want to point out that the arrests made and most of the convictions, 90% of the convictions that happened, were Democrats prosecuting and convicting these people.
I don't know who
This
that's
just started
directed
in the
at.
Biden
That's
administration.
directed at you. You keep saying there's obviously fraud that the Democrats are doing.
Well, sure.
Okay.
So
Well,
you
yeah,
literally
obviously.
just said that there are people that were prosecuted for it. Who
Ilhan
were those?
Omar,
Were those people
Tim
Democrat or Republican that
So
were
do you think
prosecuted?
that Ilhan Omar is engaged in fraud?
I didn't make that claim. He made that claim, and I said I didn't care about it.
Okay.
I
Well,
didn't.
whoever
I
is-
didn't make that claim specifically. I mean, she has
not-
since
not-
2019
Scott.
increased her net worth
Tyler,
Yeah.
Tyler.
I'll get into it.
66,676%, and her husband has beaten Warren Buffett on the stock market every year since then, which is interesting, right? But I mean, like, not atypical of politicians to be engaged in corruption and fraud. They're all corrupt, right? Like, if you're voting for a politician, you know it's a corrupt piece of shit thief
Okay,
that
well,
should
can I
probably
just
be
ask
killed
directly then, just so
and
we
drawn
can
and
get a-
quartered publicly for the crimes that they've committed against the American people.
Just so I'm aware of your all's takes here, I'll just ask directly: who here thinks that Tim Walz or Ilhan Omar or any of the ones senators, House Representatives, have engaged in fraud here? Who thinks that?
just like speculates
engaged
it,
in
or
fraud?
No, who
confirms
has
it?
evidence for that?
Oh, we're not going to get evidence.
I mean, if I had
Hey,
evidence, I'd have already
no
turned it in,
evidence.
right?
Well,
I mean,
there's-
so the Senate,
There's no
the
investigation
congressional,
yet.
the
'Cause I'll
congressional
just
committee.
speak to you that some of the Democrats at the state level obviously did.
Did anybody listen to
commit
the
fraud.
congressional
Yes.
committee today, other than me?
I looked at the highlights.
Dude.
I was busy.
I was
today.
watching-
I unfortunately
Okay.
was busy.
So,
all
all right,
day.
so
Just
if you
started
watch,
an
it's
investigation.
fine.
Hold on.
Right. If you watched it at all today, right, then obviously there's no smoking gun of like Tim Walz or any of these people signing a document saying that like there is no smoking gun as of right now. And I highly doubt that they'll find one, even if they did a genuine, thorough investigation. What we do know, right, is that Tim Walz put money forward to it was $5 million to have additional investigations into fraud. We know that. We know that he took some level of action. We also know that the lieutenant governor, and a lot of these people were getting a lot of check blue money from the very organizations that were some of which are accused, some of which were prosecuted for fraud. We know that the administration in their process and the Waltz administration changed with that $5 million. They changed the DHS in Minnesota from specifically targeting and trying to investigate fraud to overbilling, and created committees to try and recoup money to some
That's
degree.
Ali. He's my
And so
best
while they
friend.
put in more money for investigation, they moved away very much from criminal investigations into
Yeah,
going
he's
through
nice,
documents
I
and being
like
like, hey, can we recoup some of this
Cool
money?
guy.
Is that tacit support or not? It's like a lot more investigation is going to have to go through to what level of
Yeah, I don't see him
to what
much
level they were
anymore.
complicit in
Stuff going on
specific
with Wade
stealing,
Panel, too,
you know,
break
fraud, right? That is not necessarily my overarching
doesn't work
argument. I
right.
agree with you, your characterizations with my argument. I don't need to be defended against those characterizations
close that door,
because they're not
please?
mischaracterizations. I agree that people are tying this to immigration and to Somalians specifically. I agree that people are tying this to welfare. I think that is good, and I think that they are inexorably linked. And I think it is a very I think it is a debate bro tactic to try and isolate what is happening and what is occurring from the overarching problems of the welfare state and from immigration policy to try and say, no, we just need to focus specifically on the is this one daycare center, do we have the evidence to prove that this is fraud or not fraud, when we do have a ballooning welfare state that is putting the middle class into inexorable amounts of debt and destroying this country.
Just
Bef-
real quick, can
Before you, go ahead, Wick. After Wick goes, I'm gonna get Ollie in here to give an intro. Real quick. Go ahead.
when you say the welfare state, are you including Medicare, Medicaid, stuff like that?
I'm including all of it, right? So I would
Okay,
include
so-
farming subsidies. I would
yeah.
include.
I got you.
I would include all of that.
I
Social
understand.
Security, right?
Yeah. So almost all of that 1.4 trillion you mentioned that going toward the quote unquote welfare state goes to old people, right? It a vast majority goes to caring for old people specifically. So if we want to look at the problem with this, right? It isn't daycare centers or welfare as a whole to working class individuals, right? It's
No, I disagree with that.
the vast majority of it goes towards old people and the health care for old people.
Yeah, no, I disagree with that characterization. When you have, according to the,
Well, am I
to the
wrong?
committee today, we have well, you said right that that you wanted me to agree to you saying that the issue is old people and not fraud or welfare system in general. That is you're correct that the boomers are the major recipients of the welfare state. That doesn't magically mean that fraud in Minnesota at the conservative estimate of $9 billion, which is more than we've sent to Israel in aid since the beginning of October 7th, is somehow not an issue, right? Both are an issue. The redistribution
be
towards
at the same
poor
time.
boomers, right? Like I don't care. Like
Yeah, but this
I
is the
made the
trick.
assertion.
This is
I
the
know it's not a trick. There's
It
no
is,
trick.
because you say
What
we
trick?
can't focus on one thing, and then I try to make a more holistic argument, and you're like, well, we have to see he's dodging from focusing on this one thing. What are you doing?
That's not a trick. That's not a trick. You're trying to use what I attacked you on and reverse Uno it, but you're failing because it's just not true. What I'm saying is the meta argument is very simple. $1.4 trillion being spent. If that money was simply redistributed to the poor, that would be $70,000 for every household in America that is defined as poor. If you're not poor, you don't need government assistance, whether or not you're fucking young or old.
We're going to come back to that in a second because I actually have something I want to bring up in a moment about that. But let's get all in here, and then you can go ahead and give us an intro and your thoughts on if we should prosecute Democrats for widespread fraud.
Yeah, man, the first thing I want to say is fuck everyone for making me watch that Nick Shirley video. Jesus, that kid is the most annoying, insufferable kid. And but okay, your question. When you say Dems, like, I don't know what you like. Democrats in Minnesota? Do you mean like Tim Walz? What do you mean by Dems? Because no, I've seen people run scams in all red states, blue states. It doesn't necessarily matter.
Well, if you want me to answer that, I'll answer that and I'll let you go back. But like, so I guess where I'm coming from is when I try to do these shows, I try to bring like what I hear from my normies friends, right? This is like what they're saying, and I try to bring it here, and I like to have our internet brain boys come and argue about whatever the normies think is happening, right? And the conspiracy theory that I'm hearing, whether or not it's conspiracy theory or not, is it's pretty widespread. But the idea is they're bringing people here, they're spending our tax dollars on them, they're using it to like get people elected, and then it goes all the way to the top. In fact, we can look, Walz was behind all this, and look, he was the VP candidate. So the whole Democratic Party's evil, and we need to, I don't know, tear them down brick by brick. That is like an argument that I'm seeing.
Everything you just said doesn't require fraud, by the way.
Sure,
Everything
but I understand that. I understand that. Right. Their argument is that the fraud.
I'm just pointing out all of the things that you stated. Importing people from other countries, giving them resources, saying that we're the ones that were going to help you, giving them a bunch of aid. None of that requires any fraud whatsoever. For that conspiracy to be true. What you just described is factually true without any fraud.
Well, okay, well then let me give you some of the more fringe parts of the conspiracy. Oh, Melissa Hortman, well, she knew she was killed by someone with Walz connections, right? He knew it was murder, it was assassin, right? Like there's like it goes pretty widespread. No one's saying that. I'm not saying that either. I'm just bringing this up because I feel like it's a topic that's not being discussed in the way I think it should be, which is that it's like an internet, like a nasty onion.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be a dick. It was just really important that I pointed out that
let Ollie finish, and we'll open it back up again. Go ahead, Ollie.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess like, I hear all that. That argument never makes sense to me. The idea that like that Democrat politicians are immigrating people in to win votes, and then like it's to their own detriment, right? If this is at the end of the day racism, it's to their own detriment. Their white people are losing out, right? And they're hearing you because Gavin Newsom is he's cozying up to the Groypers. He's posting his old school badass basketball photos. He has his white family on for he's mogging on JD Vance. So we got all that going on. All I'm saying is for this, I haven't seen anyone necessarily defend this, right? Everyone I've seen who's watched this video, all the Democrats I've seen have been like, if there's fraud, prosecute, get it the fuck out of here. So like when you say like, should Dems be held liable? The only way I see them held liable is potentially it's easier to scam in a democratic state because they have better social social nets and social policies. So it's easier. Maybe if you want to go towards negligence, if you want to go towards something like that, I can agree with there on like negligence potentially, right? But the biggest concern I've heard is that people were concerned. The Democrats were covering this up for concerns of racism, right? Because they were concerned that people would call them racist. But then in the video and even in the reviews I've seen, Democrats did try to they reviewed a few people of these licenses. They took some of these licenses down. I mean, they were shutting these people down for certain failures. A couple of them were like failures to some of the kids weren't vaccinated. Some of the workers weren't vaccinated, right? Like all these things. So like they were, in there and investigating and doing all that. So but maybe negligence.
You laid out the trick. You laid out the trick that Democrats are doing, right? What they're doing is they're saying, of course, fraud is bad. Of course. Hold on. Right? Yeah. You laid out the trick. They go, of course, fraud is bad. Of course, these things. Fair. And then when people are like, well, then we need to shut this shit down and fix it. They go, but Trump shutting down the money in the stem of the flow that is rampant with fraud is making children starve, and it's evil. And
so I don't think
they'll tell you to your face that we should prosecute the fraud.
I don't think
they're supporting the system that incentivizes massive amounts of fraud.
It's not smart to just shut down all of the fucking system overnight, right? Just because because
It
you find out
is.
for
That is the right thing to do.
Mind you, this isn't even fraud. The Nick Shirley video isn't new. The Nick Shirley video isn't new. In 2000, like I think a few years ago, they were doing reviews on this. CNN was doing reviews on this. Like, this isn't new, right? Like, I'm not saying that it's good or that we should let it go, but you can't just shut shit down overnight because of a YouTube.
Yeah, fraud
video.
has always existed. What's new is the ever increasing amounts of fraud and the ever increasing amounts of this community having the balls of Democrat politicians tightly grasped to the point that they're doing mea culpas about the
I don't even
racism
think
of
it's
Trump
Democrat
and
politicians.
talking about like, I grew up Jewish, so I know what it's like to be bullied in the neighborhood, and they're sitting there laughing in their fucking face, going,
Yes, I think it's politicians.
as they're stealing money from them, wearing $2,000 glasses, making up shit about their daycare center getting broken into.
Let's go to Grid. Grid, what do you think is politics?
Grid, real quick.
Okay,
Let me
go
just
ahead.
give you a bounce off real quick. You'll play off of it. So like, it's either politicians, which I don't think it's like Tim Walz approving this. Rather, I think it's people within the community who maybe got like work within like a local, not necessarily government, but you know, those like assistants. These are people who probably went to school. They know how to work the program, so they're doing the cover-ups. I think it's an inter-community thing, right? I don't necessarily think it's politicians that are doing it.
Nah, they're too
That's
scared
kind of what
to
I'm
be
saying.
pulled off to this degree.
That's a great point, but I'm gonna put this to Wick and Fabian, because these guys are each gonna have a different opinion on this. I think I know which way it's gonna go. So if it's the case, Wick, that Walz did all of these, which I believe it is, that he'd put all of these task force in place, he tried to get the enforcement up, he did all of those things. If that's the case, why is it that the only actual investigations and prosecutions have come from the national government and not the state government?
Well, I think
because they're federal loans that the people have, right? A lot of it's some federal money.
But the state can prosecute for fraud in their state.
And to be clear, a lot of them kicked it up to the FBI when they realized that the scope was probably beyond their resources, right? We would just cede to me, right, that the federal government has more resources.
I think you could assume that happened. I don't think there's any evidence that happened.
There is for the major case, the autism case. There's documented evidence that Keith Ellison and the state government worked with the federal government for that like big one. I think it was like
I mean, and
hundreds of millions.
And I can't give you every single case of fraud that happened and whether or not and how the state government worked with the federal government. It's beyond the scope of what my answer can be to you. However, I can say that in the instances, if you find instances where state government actively obstructed the federal government's investigation of these things, I'm for prosecuting that or holding them accountable. But what I haven't seen is evidence that that's the case, and that's what I'm asking you. Do you have evidence that the state someone at the state level obstructed the federal government's investigation?
In March of 2025, a federal judge found Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, was not telling the truth. That means he was lying about stopping payments on these nonprofits. That he said that he did, but he in fact did not. And a federal judge found that to be true. And there were claims of racism that were made, and the case was thrown out. Now, whether or not you agree with that, that is the facts, right? I don't give a shit whether you agree with it. That's the facts. It happened.
Well,
This again, you can't. I'm just asking if you want to say that the Democrats at the state level or even the federal level they want the same things the Republicans want, and they're trying to do a good job. You cannot prove it, or you've not been able to prove it. I don't have to prove that anybody that commits fraud should be charged with fraud. I don't care what party they are. But what we have is a proven arc of Democrats in positions to regulate these programs, repeatedly either failing to do their job, which fire them or maybe put them in jail if it's criminally negligent, or in the damn programs, that's best option, or admit that Democrats cover for each other and they're just not going to go to fucking jail.
Well, you said that he was found the facts of a case that got thrown out.
Yes, he was found. A federal judge found he was not telling the truth.
Do you mean that the case was found in favor of Tim Walz?
It was not found in favor of Tim Walz. A federal judge found that Tim Walz was not telling the truth about
Then why was the case
stopping
thrown out?
payments to these nonprofits that were defrauding the government. In fact,
why was
Go
the
ahead.
case thrown out that you're referring
Wait,
to? Why was
he
it
did
thrown out?
because there were
perjury?
claims of racism made, and the case was thrown out.
Let
So
me
you
let me
think
ask.
that- oh, hold on. So
ahead.
just to be clear, because someone said that the case was racist, the case got thrown out.
No, they filed. I know what he's talking about. They filed a racial suit against the state for persecution against the Somali community, and it held up the investigation on the state level that was being done.
So was the case thrown out?
Racist.
I think that it didn't get settled in time, and the federal government stepped in and took over. I don't think we saw a conclusion to it.
I think
So,
that
well, the
the-
federal
so
judge was already
I
ruling
guess
forward.
hold on.
At best, I think
Well,
halted.
let me just pause this because I think we're going down a little bit of a rabbit hole. Like, what is the like? And this is the same question I know I've got asked for like the Trump stuff when he got convicted and all these stuff, and I said it was a witch hunt and whatever. Like, I guess we're at a point now. It's like, what is the standard that y'all are going to accept as like, what did you say, interfering with the case? Would it be like, oh, someone is going to go give testimony about fraud happening and they get fired the day before they're supposed to give? Or would it be like, oh, they're doing this like race case where they're using lawfare? What is like the standard for interference? What like, let's go to the left here.
That's
Yeah.
easy to answer though for you. Like it's like any email that says like giving them some sort of tips on order how to get away with what they're doing. Any coordination saying, hey, we're going to give you this money. Make sure you donate back to us.
Any
Anything-
tangible involvement
Yeah.
between one and the other. It's going to
It's
be any
pretty simple.
involvement, really. If
Do we
Tim-
have
I don't know
any
any
of
of the other people in politics,
Yeah.
but if Tim Walz was talking to any of the daycares, right? If there's any email between like
Yeah, do we
any of
have
the
any of that?
politicians.
Do we
There's
have any
enough
evidence
smoke.
that any
There's
of that
more
happened?
than enough smoke to merit the investigation that
Well,
just
wait.
started.
So like, okay, as far as I know, growing up in Dearborn, large Lebanese community, we had this thing called Access, right? It was people who didn't necessarily work in the government, but they would help. They knew enough English and they were here long enough. Maybe they were second generation, third generation people, and they would help like non-English speaking people like fill out forms for businesses, fill out forms for so on and so forth. Like, why does it
And
have
to
to be
vote.
that the
Don't
well,
forget
and
voting.
vote,
In
how to
Minnesota,
vote,
you
whatever,
can
where to
vouch
vote,
for
so on and
someone,
so forth.
even if they don't have an ID or any proof of residence. Up to
So,
7 people.
well, if this whistleblower
Yeah, I don't know,
accusations
but I'm saying
can
like
get
there are
verified,
probably it's probably
Hold
more
on.
likely that there are these resources in like Minneapolis, right, where there is like a center for like Somali people that can go to help them file these papers. It's more likely that that group would be like involved in the fraud than people that are like finagling, because with a lot of these daycares, it was they said in the video it would say like 2 daycares were run out of the same place, but really it showed like there was a daycare in 2022 and 2023, and then it changed names, or it seemed to have changed names in 2024 and 2025. So it just it seems like
Well, I mean,
it doesn't
several of
seem
them were shut down, right? They
So-
came
some of them
in,
were
they
shut down and then
Hold
they
on,
reopened
hold on,
under a
hold on.
different name. Yeah,
Yeah, they would get investigated for committing fraud,
yeah,
and then they would shut down.
yes,
They would wait a month or two. They'd reopen,
different name.
different name, same owner, I assume, or
100%.
maybe change, maybe the wife instead of the
Yeah, we
husband.
see corporations do this all the time.
Yeah, corporate.
yes.
Yeah. This isn't. I mean, that's what's called fraud.
100%. Yeah, I know. I'm not saying there
Okay,
isn't
so-
fraud happening. I'm
so-
saying I don't think it's the
Hold on, hold
politicians
on.
enabling the fraud. That's kind of what
Okay,
I'm
so
saying.
the
I
question
was
is-
asked-
Politicians
let me-
have to
let me-
enable it because they're the ones that sign off on it. They're the ones that
question-
Tyler, the baby.
They could be
Yeah,
getting
hold on.
frauded. They're getting scammed as well.
Tyler, go ahead.
The
It's a
question at the
government
end of the
scam.
day is if the whistleblowers can be verified in any way, that's enough proof to prove they were culpable. But I kind of want to go like back to what Wick was saying earlier with the old people being the majority of spending with the programs. The boomers are getting there now. Scott wants to get rid of the state, but democracy is very in favor of these social programs, especially Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and things like that. So we need to grow the
It's
state.
not an argument against my claim to just
It's
say
not,
to
but it's
just
what they
attack
want.
me for being an ANCAP, right? Yeah, but you're
No,
not.
I'm just
you're not
that's what
actually
people
attacking.
want. We have to be
Well, no,
practical.
okay,
I'm not
yeah, I don't
attacking,
give
I'm
a.
just
I don't.
saying we have to be
No. What you were
practical.
doing is you are using that as a vector to attack my ideology instead of the claim that I am making. And the claim that I am making is that $1.4 trillion sent on welfare is redistributed to the poor whether they are elderly or not,
I get that.
would result in $70,000 a year in
Sure.
funds to
I
those
understand
people.
that, but
And
the
if you're
point
not,
is-
and so if you're
maybe I'm-
making
maybe
if
I'm
you're making
mistaken. The point
70
isn't
plus
giving
30,
people
you ought to be able to
money.
afford your fucking
The
medical
point is not
expenses.
But maybe
giving
I'm
people
mistaken.
money.
We aren't
Hold
here
on,
to
hold on, let me
argue
get the
the
whole point
welfare
out.
state. We're here to argue fraud.
Yeah.
I am 110% here to argue
they're
that
linked.
this
Hold
is
on.
inexorably linked, and that this is a feature, not a bug. That what is occurring in Minnesota is occurring throughout the entire country, and that what we're and that the welfare system is a system that is designed to strangle the middle class, and in part, in my opening statement, as I stated, is a eugenics program to ensure that high IQ, productive, conscientious people that are predominantly going to be white people here in America, if we were in fucking China, it would probably predominantly be Chinese people, to keep them from creating businesses, owning homes, having large families, and to create a two-tiered system of imported, low IQ, poor people that are constantly fighting for breadcrumbs from the government while the wealthy elite and corporations steal all our
This
fucking
is what
money.
I'm trying to
I am
address.
here to
You guys
argue
just won't
that.
let me finish the sentence. I'm trying to
I have
get
evidence
into
of
this.
every one of those fucking claims.
Hold on, I'm trying to get into this because your framing is a little wild. But again, most people want these social programs, so we have to think of a practical way to do it. So I'm trying to explain why we need compassion-based immigration.
Yeah,
If we look
redistribute
at-
the money.
Hold on, if we
Just
look-
redistribute the money.
It doesn't
Are you
work.
poor?
People don't want money handed to them. We're giving money away to give the government to get the government to do things for them. Here, take our money.
You
and
sure
build
about that?
roads. Yes.
You sure? You
Yes.
sure that if I go to a random poor person out on the street and say, "Would you rather have all of the government programs that you have right now, or would you rather get $70,000 a year in a
No,
paycheck
I'm not
from
sure
the
if you go
government?"
to a single anecdotal person and ask them, but if you go to the
I
majority
didn't say
of the
anecdotal.
country,
Let's do
Hold
a
on, hold on,
let's
if
do
you
a
go to the
hold on.
majority of the country,
doing
yes,
UBI
these
now?
Let me
programs
just
are very
hold on. Let me just reframe this a little bit, really. Like, to Fabian's point on 70K, we don't have to use that example, right? I think another example that's in the news right now, we have the alleged fraud in California that's up potentially 250
Ohio
billion.
too, yeah.
Yeah. But well, I only did the math on one of them. So, $250 billion allegedly spent in California, right? So I did the math, right? That's about $750 per person could have gone in your pocket, like, right? And so,
So
now
much
we don't have the proof yet that it's happened. There's no proof, but in my mind, to your point, like, what's better? Is it you have the check or you don't have?
Let me
I think
explain.
that's the
Let me
argument
explain
he's
something.
making.
Let me
You
just
don't
give
agree
you
with
an
that?
example.
I agree. That's the argument.
They had
It's
it.
silly.
They had a California, San Francisco. I apologize. San Francisco had a housing program, right? And there was a wonderful kind of like I forget the guy's name. He's a YouTuber turned real estate mogul that like does like financial things. And like his big claim to fame is that like he doesn't raise rents on people because he makes more money by not raising rents. Because if you have a good tenant, why raise their rent and gamble with like them leaving and then getting a new tenant that might be super shitty? That it's just more profitable for him to keep the rent the same and not raise rents. So he saw this program that San Francisco put forward, and what the program was is it was supposed to turn units or buildings that weren't necessarily single family housing, or they were really big houses, into duplexes. And this is an expedited process. And what ended up happening is he spent a bunch of money to turn it into an apartment building, or like an apartment or a little small house for someone, right? He went through the inspection. There was a $15 item. The inspector didn't want to wait, so he had to get a new inspection. Upon the new inspection, they said that, oh, actually, you need to pay one of our approved lenders to use a camera and go through your sewage line to make sure that everything's good. So then he had to wait a couple weeks. He paid for that. Then they said, oh, there's a crack at the sewer line where it meets with the city at the road. That's going to cost you $22,000, and you need to get an approval from the city. By the way, the law requires that you give 60 days notice to the supposed moving in tenants that there's going to be things that are going to get done. So he fights through that. He gets in another inspection. Once he gets another inspection, they say the sidewalk has tree roots, and those tree roots are damaging the sidewalk that the city owns, so you need to pay that. By the way, there's a 60-day approval process. And what ended up happening is he lost almost $100,000, and he had to pay government-approved lenders, companies that work with the government, that have special access to the government, as he was bled and dried of almost 6 figures and no rent. And this is an expedited program. This is how welfare actually works, is that it is designed to enrich people's political donors,
when I was
designed to
out of
enrich
work-
Go ahead,
the
go ahead.
system, designed to enrich the wealthy so that we can create bullshit affordability programs that don't help the poor. And that's why we're spending $1.4 trillion and poor people are still fucking poor.
When-
This is a
when I was out of
feature.
work-
It is meant
Okay,
to create
dog,
fraud.
wrap it up.
Hold on. Let's go ahead, Wayne.
No, if he's gonna tell a story, I'm gonna tell a story. When I was out of work, right? If we're gonna do anecdote
Story
ending
time?
here, right? When I was out of work before I joined the military, right? There was a period of time I'd gotten fired, laid off from my job, not fired, right? And I was out of work for a little bit. Thank God that they had unemployment for me in the state that I was in, so I could pay a little bit of my bills and get through that time and get back on my feet. The idea
Who pays
that
for
it
that
was
unemployment, by the way?
specifically designed to destroy white
He paid for it.
low
Who pays for that, by the way?
right is
Who pays for it?
insanity. It is not
pays for that?
in fact.
Who pays
and
for
you
that
have
government program?
plenty of
Hold on,
evidence
let me
of
finish.
welfare actually
pays for that
helping
program?
people get
The
through.
voters.
I am an example of welfare.
Who pays for that
helping
program?
someone
Let him finish.
get on their feet, right? But we're not
Who pays
here
for unemployment?
to talk about the welfare state. We're here to talk about.
I'm here to
whether
talk
or
about the
not
welfare state. Who
Democrats
pays for
are
it?
to
Well,
blame
let me-
for fraud,
Well,
and specifically
for
through
it?
the lens
Who
of
pays for it?
Minnesota.
So
Who
let me
pays unemployment? Who pays unemployment?
The
Man, it
voters.
doesn't
The
matter.
tax-
No.
I was
okay.
there.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
so
the business pays unemployment insurance. That is money that is taken out of your
voters.
paycheck every single time that you get a paycheck because you cost payroll taxes, unemployment insurance, and a whole bunch of other taxes in order to hire you. You could have been making $6, $7, $8 more an hour that entire time and actually saved money, gotten into a better position, and been better off in your life.
Well,
the
I'm
employer
glad
is
that it
paying
wasn't
for that.
case.
hold on. Let
I
me
would've
move
sent it, and I'm
let me move
glad
it.
that the state held that money back, and I voted for those benefits.
So you're saying you're retarded with your money?
Governed is important.
You're saying you
and I
couldn't
can
have used
send
that
it
money
to
more
Walmart.
effectively?
Most people are retarded with their money. Yes.
Hold on. So here's the, okay. I get that there is the greater conversation. Actually, I think Wick actually said this in the opening about like wanting to be attached to more things. But I think that there's more direct link for like what these conspiracy people are saying, right? I'm gonna post a couple links right here in the group chat. This is gonna be one of them. So Minnesota is also under fire for their voucher voting system, right? And they're
I brought
also
that up yeah.
yeah, I believe you did. And they also are under fire because Trump, like, I guess, lost Minnesota by 139,000. And now, according to public records and some election official, allegedly there's 193,000 duplicate votes. And so now they're opening up an investigation into voting. And I actually looked, and apparently this has been an ongoing issue. There's a claim that in 2022, 583 votes were the deciding factor in a local election. And they're
Like I said, you don't need fraud.
Yeah.
You
So,
just need the government programs that the Democrats created to fuck
hold on,
over the middle class.
The point that I'm making, and I guess I'm making for the people that aren't here, and I guess that I wanted really to talk about with this panel, is there seems to be some kind of connection between the money going out to the NGOs and then coming back to the Dems and then potential voting fraud and like why these people coming. Do you, Ali, do you or Wick see this as a potential thing? Because I know like Fabi wants to talk about the welfare, and that is, appealing to me, but like, if we're not going to talk about the welfare, do y'all see like this grand conspiracy? Do y'all see the potential that this is happening?
Well, can I just ask you, like,
Sure.
how much kickbacks did the Dems get in your mind, like monetarily, from all these fraudulent organizations? And who got those kickbacks? How much were they? Can you show me the numbers on these?
Yeah, I can find a
Please.
click, but yeah, it's thousands.
A lot of it
I
was
think
brought
it's
up
more-
in the congressional
yeah.
committee. A lot of these people got hundreds of thousands of dollars from the same people. Specifically the oh god, what was it?
Is it PAC money?
No, not it. It was the fuck. What is it called?
Yeah, to be clear, what I'm asking.
Feeding
for-
Our Future.
I got you.
Right, the
I got
Feeding
you.
Our Future that got prosecuted.
Wants to know
for the
which Democrat is
$250
benefiting
million
from the-
dollars
from
that they
the
did in
scam.
fraud.
To be clear, the
and
Democrats
local politicians got
prosecuted
over
them.
$100,000.
35 million
Democrats
is from the daycares. Is the one. Yeah, I have
were the ones who brought this to the federal attention, and the Democrats were the ones that prosecuted them. So if the Democrats are getting kickbacks from them, it obviously didn't stop them from stopping the Feed Our Futures fraud.
Yeah.
You do realize that Democrats aren't one person, right? That there's multiple people. There's going to be some
Hmm.
Democrats that give a fuck
Interesting.
and care about fraud
So maybe
and want to
we should
investigate that.
only
And then
go
there's going to
after
be
the
other
Democrats who are
Democrats.
engaged in fraud and not try to.
Do you think you made a bright
broad
point
brush
here?
of the Democratic
Literally,
Party.
no one.
Thanks for making my point, you fucking retard.
I think
Jesus
you might
Christ.
be the retard here.
Talk about
No one
Somalian
here
level
is
IQ.
arguing.
Here we have a good example of it.
It's literally
I'm way
the,
smarter than you, Wick. Come on.
Not in
so
any
it is
world,
it is
in
the
any
prompt,
shape,
right?
way,
The
or
prompt
form.
is
You've
should
never
Dems
demonstrated
be...
that.
Brother,
You've
you are
never shown
brother. You are the
that. You've
midwit
lost
of
every
midwits.
single
All right, listen.
argument
So
you've
hold on.
had.
All right.
You already
I-
lost every single argument.
So
In
right,
fact,
all
you're
right, moving on.
reaffirming
So,
that
all right.
Somalians have low IQ.
All right, let's
You're
go to.
fucking
Let me
conceding the
let me
point
go
that
to-
they're fucking functionally retarded.
let me go to Ollie. I don't care so much about the who's with on it convo. Listen, we're all with on it. Anyway, here you go, Ollie. Go ahead.
I think the most likely is that it leans towards like for votes, right? You bring you have the NGOs that go and they find these people and they bring them in, and you know, to Fabian's point, American elite want a immigrant poor class to control in America, which to an extent doesn't that just make
That's just adding to it. That's not my point. Just be very clear.
Oh, okay.
Like they want a poor class that loves.
But it helps that
social
if a lot of them are
programs.
immigrants.
Well, I mean, if you're trying like it doesn't. It's not like there's like some fucking dude with like a big Jewish nose rubbing his hands together, creating this whole thing. It's a matter of
Well, no, that's what Gibbs. That's what Gibbs's friends are saying.
It's like if you are a Democrat, right? You are a socialist, right? Like there's no such thing as a Democrat that isn't a socialist, obviously.
Well, Republicans
so when
are
you are a
socialists too in
socialist
your eyes.
Democrat, most Republicans would be socialist, correct?
That's
The
just, as long as we
overwhelming
have
majority.
that caveat.
Right, they love you are
Trump's
a
socialist.
representative of the party that wants more social programs, that wants more NGOs involved,
Yes.
right? That wants a bigger government to help the poor, etc. It is in your best interest to do two things: to enrich yourself and create connections with the wealthy elite, so that you can have more power and more money. And it is also within your interest to do whatever it takes to have a large base voter class that is interested in social programs. And so if that means giving it to immigrants, and that means there's more people that can in a few years vote for you, that's the incentive, right? It's not like they're like, how can we absolutely get the Somalians here? It's like, how can we get low IQ poor people to want more and more social programs that end up having big kickbacks to all my NGO,
Right.
wealthy people
Abe
that run
Lincoln
these
wants
programs.
slaves free for the vote. I get the
1%
point.
of the vote, libertarian take up 60% of the talking time. So to go back to what Gibbs is actually talking about here, these donations.
Sorry, I'm in teacher mode. I'm
Why-
just trying to educate you guys so you can understand what's going on.
Nobody's gonna vote for it either way. We want our social programs. But anyways, going back to these kickbacks here, like I don't see donations as proof of guilt. You're gonna have to show me there was some clandestine meeting to say that this is something that was worked out, because these groups, if the fraud was unknown by the politicians, of course they're gonna donate to the politicians that are saying they're gonna continue to fund them.
No one working there was thinks that the fraud was unknown. Like
We don't know that
everyone
yet.
knows that fraud is rampant in this system.
We just
It's
don't
literally
know that
we know
Omar
that. We
and-
all know that. You know that. You're lying right now.
I'm not lying. We don't know
You
it. because
you
we
know
don't
that
have proof.
everyone that has been everyone that has been that has
Grid, you're looking great, by the way.
that had power to and had authority and was supposed to be in charge in some capacity of tracking this shit knows that, by the way, knows that these places were also involved in PPP fraud loans.
That's
Right?
speculation.
Like there's several
at this point.
bank
Everyone was
centers that were
involved in
taking PPP loans.
fraud.
We're speculating.
Right,
I
well, we
agree
brought
with
it
you.
up, but it ties to this as well,
We just
right?
don't
Like
have
we
that
all
proof
know.
yet. We don't have that proof
We
yet.
don't have we don't have proof that a specific daycare place is engaged in the certain amount of fraud, right? Like we look at the Quality Learning Center and we know that they got investigated and then got their license back like 20 times. You can go just look on the Minnesota website. And we know that legally, they are not legally allowed to operate a daycare center after 6 p.m. because their license is for normal waking hours. They are a daycare, not in afternoon care program. Their license doesn't allow them to be open from 2 to 10
That's
p.m.
inaccurate.
But-
You're misrepresenting it. These are
I'm not misrepresenting.
These
You
are
have proof of
example
that?
hours. They aren't firm, hard, fast requirements.
In fairness,
There is a specific licensing for afternoon care programs. They're not licensed for that. They're licensed for
Ilhan
quote unquote
Omar-
normal waking hours, which is from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So
Ilhan
we know
Omar-
that
Those
their
are the
paperwork.
examples they
That
give
doesn't
of
mean
normal waking
that doesn't
hours,
mean
to be clear.
that doesn't. Okay, yeah, but 2 to 10 p.m. is not that when there is a license for that, which is afternoon care. That being said, that doesn't prove that they're fraudulent. It just proves that like maybe if the most charitable interpretation is that they're like retarded to the point where they can't get a sign that says Quality Learning Center, so their like paperwork's all fucked up.
What we know is Ilhan Omar wrote the Meals Act, and Ilhan Omar wasn't born here. She's not one of those intelligent Somalis in the first generation. You know what I'm talking about? She's one of those inbreds with that fucking 60 IQ or whatever.
Oh,
you guys are talking about.
I want to like come back to this.
Probably smarter than the
I want to come back to this
right?
cash that's being flowing out of the daycare centers.
Her family were
hold on. We'll come back to
genocide against their own people.
Yeah, we'll come back to
so she's probably higher IQ than
Hold on. We're gonna talk about Alien more in a moment. All right, that's fine. We'll come back to that. I do want to focus on what we're talking about right now, though, which is, do we have a problem? And like, I know I personally have a problem if it was a Republican or a Dem, since we're doing this little thing. If I got government funding for my business, and then I turned around and I was spending that money on political campaigns. Like now, I agree we haven't fully approved
it's
this
a corrupt
yet,
incentive
but
structure. It doesn't necessarily
but it does.
fraud.
What?
I'm saying it's a corrupt incentive structure if you have businesses that are potentially engaged in fraud and getting, or at the very least getting a ton of government money, and then some of that government money goes to the very people that are supposed to investigate whether or not they deserve that government money.
Yeah, that's called. Hold on, that's we. You know what we call that? That's called a protection racket. Right, you go down there.
Government is a protection racket.
Yeah. Like, wait, hold on. I like if I'm in the mob. Let's say I'm the cartel, and I open up a business, and I say you're gonna give me $1,000 every fucking month, for protection.
That's different.
That's one thing. That's different, right? But there's no fundamental
that's what
difference.
taxes are.
Oh, yeah, sure. Sure. I guess you could say, but there's a difference between, oh, hey, we're gonna cut you this kickback, and then I'm gonna turn right around and I'm gonna donate $1,500 to like 15 campaigns. Like, so that y'all can get elected. Like, that seems like there's a systematic, like, in place system that this is what, like, these people that voted for Bernie originally and voted for MAGA now. They're saying that there's been a uniparty that's been sitting here and has been like a deep state almost. And like, I don't agree with this idea that it is, but I do see this idea that there are like structures in place that keep these people in power that are illegal. It seems like.
No, it's what George Carlin said, right? You don't need.
It's all this innuendo is, well, we all know.
So
can't
it's like
really
what George
prove
Carlin
it.
said.
There's no really evidence for it.
A conspiracy.
But, we're just
like
going to say we all
align,
know. Nudge,
right?
nudge, wink, wink. Like, show me the evidence, and we can prosecute it. We know we can because Biden's DOJ.
You don't give a fuck about
the
fraud.
Got actually
Stop
prosecuted. They got actual evidence. They went forth and did actual investigations. They did actual court proceedings, and they actually got convictions. All this innuendo bullshit is just that bullshit. Give us facts, give us figures, give us connections, make those connections.
So do you think?
Do
you think 1,000? Do you think 1,000 federal agents should go in and go through all of the paperwork?
Is this the same standard we have for Epstein?
Do you think it would be a good thing if Trump sent in 1,000 federal agents to go through all of the paperwork
if you have
at the government level?
Investigate it. Whatever it takes to investigate that, I'm for.
Well, the reason I brought
so you support that.
The reason
I'm gonna. He interrupted me, so I just want to.
Interrupted you,
say,
brother.
You don't.
You're going on this directed, extended cut Lord of the Rings fucking rant. We're not here to watch your fucking movie. We're here to have
why Lord of the Rings is so long because it's so good.
Constantly because you're in
right.
teacher
I'm
mode.
just so good. That's why I'm going
so
long.
Hold on.
If you would just shut the fuck up. If you would just shut the fuck up, I'd get to it real quick. So I get it. You're not here to have a discussion of any merits other than your defense of fraud.
IQ.
So, anyways. Yeah, Somali IQ is a big part of this discussion. But regardless, I just want to say this again. It's like George Carlin said, you don't need a conspiracy when like interests align. Just because these people are donating a bunch of money to Democrats doesn't necessarily mean that there is collusion. It is in the interests of the Democrats to not go after the people that are funding their campaign, and it's in the interests of the people that are doing a bunch of fraud to give money to Democrats so that they feel like we're buddy, and so that they feel a certain way. You don't actually have to have a smoking gun of a meeting that they had to send an email and being like, you give me this much money and I'll protect you.
Okay.
What is being made up? What is the problem?
I
don't know because you haven't said anything of substance. You haven't given me anything to
I've said a
chew
lot.
on. It's all vagaries.
Oh, he said a lot.
so
Vagaries.
He sure has.
I've given. So you don't deny the numbers that I've given on welfare?
You haven't given me
You
any numbers.
I have. You argued against.
Okay, what
them.
are the numbers you've given me?
The $1.4 trillion and the $70,000 to every poor family and
Okay,
the
that has nothing
redistribution
to
of
do
that
with
instead of
fraud.
welfare programs.
That's
Absolutely
you
it
about
does.
the welfare state. I'm not here
Absolutely
to
it
argue
does.
about the
Well, the
welfare
It has
fraud
absolutely
exists
everything to
because
do with
the welfare
fraud.
program
Because
exists and
if there
people
was
can
no
take advantage
fraud
of them.
whatsoever and there wasn't kickbacks and all of these corporate fucking things and vendors and bureaucracy and it was just money, guess what? We wouldn't have any fucking poor people, would we? If they were all making six figures.
Hold on, let me.
Baby out with the
All right,
bathwater.
all right, let's go back to. I want to move back though. Because I personally don't know if I believe it's some grand conspiracy and everybody's involved. I do think that specifically Minnesota, it looks like they set up some kind of corrupt Tammany Hall kind of thing. What is the level of evidence or that we will need to say let's prosecute Tim Walz or let's talk about Ilya Omar. Go ahead.
I'll give you something clear. If you can show an email chain or any kind of written or verbal communication between Tim Walz and the people who were investigating at the state level, and he was turning them off the investigation, right? And if he was saying, don't look into this, if he was impeding them, if he was firing the people who were engaged in the investigation, or if you found out that he was trying to help the individual companies or NGOs or what have you, or individuals to get away with the fraud, and by giving them advice and saying, hey, heads up, there's an investigative team coming here, then okay, sure, great. Let's go for it, right?
And his
there's
Cash App
probably
link.
also other lesser things that I might accept that I'd have to think about it for a little bit, right? But it's not hard and fast.
What if the
What I'm
internal
asking
memo
for
is true?
right now is anything.
What if the internal memo is true? Would that be a problem for you?
Which one? Which internal memo specifically?
So, John Kennedy brought this up in an earlier hearing, right? I don't know if it's true because they didn't give me the fucking memo. According to Kesa Megan, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's a Somali name. I have fucking no idea. Saying, quote, there was an internal memo at the Attorney General's office that says, quote, there is a perception that forcefully tackling this issue would cause political backlash from the Somali community, which is a core voting bloc for Democrats. If that memo is true, right, and that they are hesitant to go after fraud because it would be perceived as an attack against the Somali community because they know the fraud is rampant in the Somali community specifically, would that be an issue? Do people need to be at the very least fired for that?
That obviously is
that
an
sounds
issue,
bad.
but does that prove, or is that evidence of them helping the fraudsters, or is this evidence of them being scared of being accused of racism in 2020?
Well, that negligence, if they're in power to be the ones to prosecute
Sure,
and
but
investigate
there's a
it because of their
there's
fear,
different
would be
standard
helping
of-
them.
There's a different standard of
Right?
accountability that I give to someone who's actively engaged in looking the other way because they
For sure.
know that
My
fraud is going
argument-
on, versus
Yeah,
someone
for
who
sure,
is
my-
scared to go after something because they might be accused of being racist. I think that
Well,
both
they
are
would
bad,
know that the fraud
to
is
be
going
clear.
on, right?
I think that both is bad, to be clear. And if that memo is accurate and true, they
Mhm.
do deserve some condemnation for not going forward with that.
Well, why
Right,
would
Even
you
though
just
they
say
did,
my argument
real quick,
isn't necessarily
I-
that there's
if I
a
may
huge
finish my
conspiracy.
point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
we know that the Biden administration on a federal level did go after these people and did prosecute them and did hold them accountable. So it didn't seem to stop the overall arc of justice here. That's all I'm going to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say and again, this is why you were saying well, you're tying it to welfare, et cetera. That's why I'm tying it to welfare. And the reason that I'm tying it to the overarching program is because my argument isn't that I have any smoking gun that Tim Walz was involved in a corrupt scheme of getting kickbacks for political donations to intentionally allow fraud to continue. What my contention is that the negligence and these voting systems, as Tyler put forward, right? That it's a feature, not a bug. that these massive government programs with limited oversight, where people are afraid to fucking, go after people because they think it might be racism or it might hurt them in the next election if they go after specific communities, is a means and the process of all of the corporations that become, the specific lenders is the real fraud. It's fraud that's legal. That's the real problem, that the entire system is incentivizing fraud to some degree and is stealing our tax dollars for an incredibly inefficient welfare distribution system that harms everybody.
No, I would like to maybe, let's just take this as a hypothetical here. Like,
If it's legal, it's not fraud.
I'm basing this off of actually our shared chat
Well,
here.
then Hitler did nothing wrong, right? Because it was legal. Like, no,
Jesus
like
Christ.
you can
Well,
have
he didn't-
things that are
he didn't
wrong
accuse
Hold
him
on.
that the
of fraud.
government
Hold on,
does,
hold on.
and they
Can
say
I-
it's
Can I
good.
give you?
Go ahead.
can I-
Go ahead.
Yeah, let me. So, and this just came out in the I believe it was the House hearings today. I believe. Let me hang on. Let me just check my notes here.
It's like 4 hours almost.
The House meeting today. There's testimony from people in the state government of Minnesota who showed, they didn't say, they showed that Wall's government, now obviously we don't know if Walls himself did it yet because they haven't gotten that far, but it's his government, backdated $680,000. Yeah, $680,000 to a grantee. That's somebody who applied for money without evidence that any work was performed or ever would be performed, which means that that's fraud. And they knew it was fraud because there was no evidence that anything had happened. They just rubber stamped it. What would you say,
that
Rick?
fraud?
Is that
Or is that just gross negligence? Right? Like, it doesn't necessarily need to be
I mean,
fraud.
come on. I mean, no, that's kind of.
That's what I'm saying, though. Like, looking the other way and
I'm asking. I'm
incentives is
curious
kind of the
what Rick
system.
thinks about that, because to me that's fraud. And to me that's that's not incompetent.
Just
You
to be clear,
willingly
are
signed
grants
it.
normally applied before the work is done, or are grants given after the work is done? I know scientific grants get some money before they do the work, right?
With a grantee, I don't know if it's a grant per se. It could be some kind of loan. It could just be.
Well, my answer depends
yeah.
on what type of financial transaction there were, because I know scientific grants, you're given the money in order to do the work, right? You're given the money, then you go through, you get do whatever it is that you're granted out to do, and then you present the findings, right? So in the case of them giving the money and then no work had yet been to be performed when they were given the money isn't necessarily evidence of anything to me. It would depend on the type of financial transaction that took place, and I just don't know.
Right. So I guess the important part, which I missed and my chat is screaming at me about, is that, well, I mean, I said it, I just didn't call attention to it, is that money was backdated, which meant that they applied for the grant at one point.
They changed records.
They
afterwards
changed
upon
records.
federal
So,
investigation.
Which is a crime in and of itself.
Let me try this, because I think
if they do a crime, prosecute.
So, well, that's interesting. So here's my thing, right? I'm sitting here listening to this, and let's just run a hypothetical, right? So Walls, let's just say Walls ends up being guilty of a litany of crimes. We know we don't have the evidence yet, but let's just say they're starting, and in 2 years they find a bunch of evidence. I guess we're at two places, and this is really to my Dims first, and then y'all can answer. So what happens then? Y'all basically just ran Walls as y'all's VP candidate, right? And this is the second highest office in the land. You know, they basically, he's presiding over all this fraud, allegedly. Let's see if he gets convicted. What does this say about the Democratic Party? One, if
brother, I don't
this
think
guy, hold on. I do want to go down this line. I'll tell you why at the end. One, is it that he's so incompetent that, you know, this all happened on his watch, he didn't get it, and the Dems were like, oh, we're purposely going to put somebody incompetent in there. Or B, that he was openly fraudulent, and they knew, and basically they just are in cahoots, right? Because they benefited. And the argument, the reason I'm bringing this up is because for many years now, we've heard about Trump and all his alleged corruption. And so I've heard from the Dems, and many times, just in the chat today, that, oh, any Republican that sports mag and all these, hold on. I've seen these things all in the chat right here, and they say, oh, you know, Republicans, they need to abandon their party. MAGA's a new party. Republican Party's gone. They've fallen by the wayside, this nasty thing. Would that mean that the Dems now need to become a new party? Like, do they need to just like gut the system? Like, you know, what does this mean?
I think, and I'm going to take a brave stance here, that both parties have serious issues that they need to get sorted out. The weird kind of, if Tim Walz is guilty, in a world where Tim Walz is guilty of all these crimes, do I think he should be prosecuted? And do I think that the Kamala Harris's vetting team failed? Yes. In that world where he is guilty of all these crimes, I think both those things are true. My question is, I don't know if we live in that world because I haven't seen evidence of this yet.
Not to defend the Democrats too much, but can we also recognize that, like, the last presidential election, in terms of like the Democrat Party's normal process of finding candidates, was a complete and utter shit show? The failure really does stem from them being like, Biden's going to be the one running, and then like realizing that it was not going to be possible to have him run, and they just slapped together a random.
Hold on,
candidate.
but Fabian, the problem I have with that, and the problem I'm hearing from like people that like I talk to regularly, they go, well, the reason why they struggled is, yes, because they didn't go through their system, just like when Bernie ran, and what was it, 2016, and they had the superdelegates to go shut him down and go, no, we want our establishment guy, right? And then they're saying, well, they didn't have a chance to find a new established guy. Well, right, sure, but they're saying we didn't have a chance to get our new established guy, so they put puppets in there like Walz, who was clearly in cahoots with the fraud. Like, that's the argument they're making, and they're saying that there's some sort of establishment within the Dems that's evil. I
don't really want to go down this road too far because it's too far away from the topic, but I thought it was actually insane the way that they picked the Democrats. I actually really thought that they were going to run like Buttigieg and Newsom, but then again, neither one of those wanted to run with Kamala. They didn't want to be attached to that. They both have plans to run for president in the future, and they're smart men. And they said, no, we're not gonna nuke our entire fucking career for that. And that's I don't want to go too far down.
Well, they went away from Shapiro so that they could be like, so they didn't have Jews. Like they were like,
we have
fuck.
evidence that they were asked to be.
We won't get elected.
But again, it doesn't matter. It's off topic. You're correct, but I don't think we have, other than Shapiro, which there is some evidence that he was asked and turned down. I don't think Newsom or Buttigieg were asked, but I could be wrong.
It probably should have been Shapiro, but then they were too worried that
if it was Shapiro,
Palestine people
she
wouldn't
was
have
turned down. I doubt they tell the world. I asked everybody, but going back to what Gibbs
at that period
here,
of time, they had meetings with Newsom and.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Sorry.
Going back to what you're asking here, I kind of forgot the question listening to everybody talk.
Appreciate it.
If Walz is guilty of this crime in 2 years,
Okay,
was it negligence, and then they were running an incompetent guy as a VP, or is it that he's a?
I guess my question is how much widespread fraud attached to like leading Dems will it take before people are gonna say it's the party.
One, the Democrats are trying to forget that whole Kamala Harris thing happened. She's fallen by the wayside. She said she's running for president. Didn't even hit the fucking media. I had to go look that shit up because it didn't hit a single news site. So nobody wants to remember Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. They want to just move on from that era and the time that they overruled their own primary votes and put up some woman that couldn't speak publicly. So I don't see that ever taking an impact. On top of that, I don't think hypothetically, if you get this rare instance where we actually get the guy at the top, Tim Walz was a nobody before that whole Kamala Harris thing. The only thing that's made him popular was running for VP. I don't think it hurts the party at all. He's gone. He's off the face of the fucking planet now.
Yeah, I think you might be right on that. I think that if enough evidence comes out, I think the Dems don't mind having Tim Walz fall on his sword.
Who the fuck's that weirdo?
I mean, obviously they don't want it. Obviously they don't want that. What I would say though, again, is how corrupt are the Dems? As equally corrupt as the Republicans, which is maximally, right? Like again, like there is this weird thing that statists require, this smoking gun of like proof of like kickbacks and explicit communication and fraud, which is just I think is an ignorant view of how government works. Is that, again, like I said, you don't need a conspiracy when like interests align. right? You're a big corporation. You go to a local politician. You donate to his campaign.
1 minute,
You give him a
74
paperwork when a bill is about to come out and say, "Here's what our thoughts on the bill are." And this fucking doofus that is an expert in nothing. Usually, it's very rare that there is a politician that's an expert in anything other than maybe business, and then like the occasional person that's like a doctor, right? Like they're usually constitutional lawyers that have been working in like government programs their whole life. And so they go to this person and be like, the chemical, fucking, DuPont thinks this is how the regulation should be on this specific chemical. And then they look and they go, oh, these people support me. They seem like good people. And then their fucking son goes to the same school and they, they get into Harvard, and then their son goes and becomes a philanthropist.
Yeah, that's how
like,
Pork Belly projects work. Yes, we
that's how
Pork Belly.
all of this shit works. And what I'm saying is the bigger the government programs are, the more of this happens, the more outright fraud happens, as well as the fraud that we call not fraud because it's not illegal, but it's been made legal. When all these vendors and people get these huge kickbacks, and on top of that, they become like, the government preferred lenders, or they get all this money for limited services. And what I'm saying is that, and I will reiterate this over and over again, no matter how much it annoys all of you, which is this is a feature, not a bug. Okay, the entire system is designed to be highly exploitable and to funnel money to the rich and to give breadcrumbs to the poor. And if you genuinely believe that we should have welfare and wealth redistribution, you should just get rid of all of these fucking programs and turn it into a goddamn paycheck. That's it.
I mean, look, I'm kind of on your side there. I definitely feel like that we have far too large a government. We have too many agencies. We have too much money floating around with no accountability. And worse, and this is why I think, and look, Wick knows this, Ollie knows this, we all know this, right? That they make these bills purposefully multi-layered and bury all of this stuff in on page 158 of a 158-page bill so that you never find it. And as they see, we put it in there. This is legal, right?
Just a small caveat to that. I don't think they're doing that to hide it. I think that they're doing that because it's become harder and harder and harder to pass individual legislation, and so they omnibus everything. And so I think that
we have to pass it to know
in
what's
order
in
to hide and obfuscate.
Remember that?
A lot of times,
the thing is, what it does.
If I can finish, a lot of times what they do is like they put it all into a single kind of omnibus budget resolution or something like that, and that's really the only legislation that gets passed, unfortunately.
Republicans do the same shit. Look at the big beautiful bill, right?
I wasn't separating this from Republicans or Democrats.
Well, that was more great than you.
Yeah, I'm not putting it in one camp or the other. I'm just simply acknowledging that that's what happens, even at the state level. Is they things get hidden.
What's more than that?
Yeah, but hold on. I like
because something gets hidden, right?
Hold on.
And then what happens is they don't actually specify in the hidden thing.
Yeah, except Gibbs is going to say
exactly
that's
how it's going to do. What they do is they kick
okay.
it to the executive. They kick it to the executive to actually determine all the parameters on this shit.
Can we get 3 cheers for government here? Big government.
Woo! I want to go. So like, here's the issue I have with kind of how y'all are taking this, right? Is in fact, I went on Tim Pool and I argued about fucking Doge with Prime, right? And we sat there, we argued, and I said, this is why we want.
In retrospect, do you stand by what you argued?
I, in fact, want to triple down is what I'm about to do. Okay. In fact, I like fucking went there
and eats bullets for breakfast.
I will do. I think Doge has still been going and doing shit. I don't know why he was doing it. Now it's learned the wrong things. I sat there and I defended it, and I pointed specifically to a case here in San Antonio of a center where they were just like, there's no reason they go, we have to keep these people on staff and they can't work anywhere else. They're paying some of these doctors $200K a year to literally. Like to do nothing, and like I was like, this is fraud, but there are people like, no, it's legal, yada yada. And so I take like a little bit of an issue when y'all go, oh yeah, etc. It's a feature, not a thing. I'm like, no. This is why Doge was created, was to go in there and find all this shit. And then now that we're finding more and more like across the nation, now it's like well.
Didn't it fail though? The guy that came in and
was
a
distraction from Epstein, or the media's not talking about it, or look who's finding this, Nick Shirley. I'm like, I don't really care who finds it.
Hold on, even if
how much fraud did Doge find?
Yeah, even if you agree with Doge, like in its conceptual, like I think you have to acknowledge that Doge failed in its mission, correct?
I don't know. I've met some people that got hired. By,
Yeah, but they only
because
found
of
like
Doge.
5% of the fraud they claimed that they were going to find.
Which is how
They,
much money?
they weren't looking specifically for fraud. They were looking for fraud,
Integration.
understanding.
Well, the point with Doge is like
They
it's
find
like
fraud.
smart.
Doge had no ability
Hold on.
to prosecute fraud.
This is the same problem I have with
Just
Republicans.
concerned
They were
with
looking
DOD.
for.
Hold on,
They were
this is
looking for.
DOJ.
Find it.
No, this is the same problem I have with Republicans.
I mean,
When
that's
y'all,
it's
hold on. There's a group.
absolutely false to say they did not find it.
But hold on, there's a group of Republicans that do the same thing with immigration, right? They go, Trump's lower numbers are lower than Obama. Trump's lower numbers are lower than Biden. And I go, well, that may or may not be true, but he built the wall. Now we have nobody coming in.
That's
So
not
even
what
if his
I'm
numbers,
saying.
so even if his numbers are lower, he's still working on the problem. Same thing with Doge. They might have promised, billions and billions and billions and trillions, right? But then they're finding something and they're working on it. Like, and then they're fighting tooth and nail. People aren't. You can't disagree with the fact people are like fighting them at every turn. I remember at one
Let me
point
ask
somebody
you
locked
this.
themselves in there and
Of
burned the
course they are.
records. Right.
Let me ask you this, Grid. Let me ask you this, Gibbs. Sorry, my bad. To me, here's my issue with what you're saying. Like, I don't necessarily disagree with you that there's a principal difference between somebody scamming, saying I'm running a daycare center with 85 kids in it, and there's like 12 kids in it, right? And like some of those kids are like being given cash just to say that their kids are there or some shit, right? I understand that that's different than other
that
things.
happening?
But what I'm saying, is
they're being given money to say
Not the
that
kids,
their
the parents.
or parents give them money to say that these are our kids and we're.
I don't
keeping
know I don't know to what scale it's happening, but it's certainly happening, right? Like, is it 20 kids? Is it 100 kids? Is it 10,000 kids? I don't fucking know. We need a full blown investigation. But do we know that there is kickbacks to people, and do we know that people are being busted in for random shit? That's happening.
But we do know it, Wick,
Just
because
statistically,
they had their
it's
licenses
like
pulled repeatedly.
listen.
I mean, come on,
Listen,
man. Stop it.
it's like when we talk about like voter fraud, and it's like, is voter fraud even happening? It's like voter fraud always happens. The question is whether or not it's statistically significant to swing an election, right? Like, this is obviously going to happen when there are trillions of dollars almost in welfare programs that some people are going to do those processes. To what degree is it statistically significant? That's a question for the investigation. But here's my question to you, Gibbs, is what is the difference to you, the taxpayer, the person trying to buy become a first-time home buyer, the person that's middle class, struggling and thinking, can we, like, groceries are getting expensive, rent is going up, I don't have the money this year to be able to start a family, can we family plan another year or two later, right? What's the difference to that person between a Somalian or a white person, whatever? In Minnesota, it just happens to be like fucking 80-90% Somalians, right? That's not who's doing it in fucking California, and there's plenty of white people doing it all over the country too. Some Somalians somewhere scamming the government and getting a bunch of tax money for a daycare center with no kids in it versus a government program for housing that a former like fucking congressman that like stepped out of the race gets millions and millions of dollars and only builds 80 houses.
Well,
like,
I'll
what's
tell you.
the principal difference?
I'll tell you the
there,
difference.
right? Like, it's both fraud to me. My paycheck.
This is easy, actually. It's very easy, and I feel like Ali's kind of alluded to this before as well. Like, I think y'all are missing the bigger picture. I know it's easy for us to be like, oh, well, one's American, one's Somali. It's not even that. It's that I think one group of people, when they're sitting here, the constituents that are wanting more of this investigations, they're going, okay, we have been bitching about this for both groups for fucking ever. And now they have evidence of, oh, hey, this group's doing it. Let's start there. And then once we start peeling back the onion, let's see what else is underneath this nasty bullshit. And then we can go after all of it. And like, so when you're going, what's the fundamental difference? You're actually working against your own cause if you're a libertarian. Because, I'm not a libertarian. I like us to spend some tax dollars. I like to whoop ass, But if you're a libertarian, you want all this gone, you should be happy they're starting somewhere. Especially with incrementalists, because at least they're looking. Because, if you find it in one area, you're probably going to find it in other.
The attention is on it, and my intention is to showcase that the government cannot solve problems. They cannot solve the economic calculation problem, and that whenever they attempt to do these things, it always leads towards less economic prosperity for all Americans. That is why I am concerned. Like, you think I give a fuck about good government as an ANCAP? I don't. right? Like the attention's there, and I'm going to fucking use the time that the attention is there to showcase that this is how the whole fucking system works, and that it's not just some Somalians in Minnesota.
I think Fabian's point is that this is a distraction, right? It's going to be the Republicans are distracting for the Democrats, covering up for the Democrats, right? It gives Fabian's point is that it's the entire government. It's the entire government that's working.
Yeah, I think
also
what Fabian's actually saying.
I'm not saying it's a distraction.
Yeah, I think what he's actually saying is that right now the attention is focused on
trying to peel back the next layer of the onion.
Problem. We were focused on it. It is a problem. We know that this problem is occurring. There's evidence of this problem occurring. Now we don't know who does it. We don't have evidence to put people in jail. Maybe we decide we don't need to put people in jail. We can just cut off the funding, or get those people primaried out in the next whatever. I don't honestly don't give a fuck. But we've uncovered this fraud, this pattern of fraud. Yeah. And it's the thing about this specific fraud that matters to me is that, yes, absolutely, I want anyone involved with it to be prosecuted. But even if that doesn't happen, the scale of it is significant enough that maybe this time next year people will still remember it when the next fraud.
When they're in the voting booth. When they're in the voting booth and some politician goes on the campaign trail, like Zoran Mamdani, for example, and says we're going to get free childcare for New York City. That is a part of my party. That is part of my platform, which it was, right? It is my job to go, hey man, that's how this shit works. You're going to get fucked out of your wealth and prosperity if you vote for people that want to put in a bunch of programs like this. That it's less of that money than you think is actually going to go to kids. It's going to go to big business and to fraudsters.
If I may just real quick, like I understand that there is never going to be a system that is free entirely and has 0% fraud, waste, and abuse. However, I think that we can limit it as much as we can and still have a lot of these programs to help people in their times of need. I do think that the state, there is a place for it. And just to briefly address this argument, like it has helped me. It has helped my family. It has helped my friends. Is it perfect? By no means, right? Does it not need ever to be adjusted? By no means. But there is absolutely a place for us to have social programs that help our communities. These are not necessarily a bad thing. And I reject the premise that it is built by design with the intent to shrink the middle class and make us all poor and stupid.
Scott doesn't think these things are
you
bad.
You reject the idea, right? I specifically stated earlier that there isn't some hook-nosed person rubbing their hands together that is planning that. What I'm saying is the thing is what it does, and that's what the incentive.
We know it wouldn't be hook-nosed
creates, right? Like the Democrats more so than the Republicans, but that doesn't mean the Republicans are free of this. Are invested in a system that denigrates the white middle class in favor of the poor and of racial minorities as a means of a voting bloc, and the incentivization is more socialist programs and more waste that enrich their friends and give breadcrumbs to the poor. That is my argument. And I would also say that when you say we can have government programs that help, I would argue that is an impossibility, that there is no such thing as a government program that has ever helped a single person ever. That is a falsity in a misunderstanding of economics and philosophy. It is not possible for those programs to have helped you, because what it has done, it has harmed you first by taking money out of the economy and lowering your opportunities and your wealth and prosperity, and then giving you some of that back. And it is a net negative for you.
If I may, Wick, and Ollie, you too, and even Tyler, I think I know. I think I know our other friend's position. How much fraud, waste, and abuse are you willing to tolerate right now? Do you believe the estimates that it's about 250 million or over or whatever it is?
It's just California.
Tolerate zero.
That's just California. Okay. I heard that it might be over $1 billion. I just don't know that I believe that that figure. How much is an acceptable amount so that you can keep you can keep the
As
social
little as
programs in
possible.
place?
Zero.
Little as
Zero.
possible.
You want an actual number?
Zero is correct. Is the correct answer
Yeah.
zero? That's
so
the best.
anytime it exists, we need to be strongly policing it and setting examples so it doesn't happen again. These safety nets are imperative, and the people want them. We need to make them work by weeding out fraud and being tough on it every single time, regardless of partisanship.
What percentage of the billions or trillions that we spend on welfare that end up in the hands of large corporations are you willing to accept?
As much
I
as
mean,
the
Are
people
these
allow,
corporations
voter,
doing a
really.
good job? That's like whether or not the
there's
corporations are
multiple
getting
reasons
money
for that.
isn't my issue. It's are they using that money to improve the lives of the community, and to what rate
No.
are they doing that? And we have to look at this
That's
at a
my
case-by-case
question.
basis.
That's literally my question.
Yeah.
If you're
It's like, what
taking 10% off the
I'll-
top,
again, I am
10% off
very
the top,
happy
I think you're
with the
good.
Is
welfare
it 10%
program
for the big guy? Because
I
I've heard that
participated
somewhere.
in when I was younger, when I needed it. I am happy that existed. I am satisfied with how it worked. It wasn't perfect.
You
It
have
was a little
Stockholm
annoying
syndrome,
at
bro. They
times,
stole that
going
money
through
from
the
you.
hoops,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
then
Maybe I
gave
think
it back
that's
to
what
you.
I
happened
found
was
that annoying,
evil.
but it helped me
Wick.
out, and it gave
It's
me
like-
money at a time where I didn't have money.
You got
That was very
paid less
helpful.
money because of that program.
No,
So
that's
grid
not true.
realist-
I would have
yeah,
spent
grid-
that money.
that's
on
real-
That
other
is
things,
factually
video games,
true.
and all sorts of bullshit.
Yeah,
It
you
would've
would
been
have spent
gone.
that money on things
Right?
that you
But
wanted.
It's
Correct.
good to have a
And then you would have
safety net
stimulated the
so
economy.
that when you do get into an unforeseen circumstance and you're too young to have much saved up, that you're able to bail yourself out. That's a good.
You're
there be
too
an
young
age
to
limit
have
then?
money
hold on,
saved
hold on.
up
No, that's
Hold
a
on,
good
because
point.
they're
the world
stealing
is a
half of
better
your
place.
money.
America
That's a
specifically
great
is a
point,
better
Rick.
place
I
now
like your
than it was
point.
before we had these systems.
It's called a
We are
savings
wealthier,
account.
We are healthier. We live longer. We have more wealth. It's just on every metric possible.
Hold on,
Yeah,
Rick,
the
Rick,
Industrial
Rick,
Revolution
world
occurred.
than
What
we
the fuck are you
did
talking about?
before the welfare state came into play.
Rick-
Refrigerators have become ubiquitous. That doesn't mean that the fucking government welfare programs
Every time I
work.
say
just
wick, I
saying, it
think of
hasn't
women
hurt us.
and is the. Let me ask you something. Should there be an age limit then? You just said for the young, it helped you out. Should there be an age limit?
I don't think the age would be the factor that I go. Do I think that there should be some restrictions on who can receive welfare? Sure, right?
Okay.
You can, depending on what program we're talking about, we can talk about like what those restrictions might look to be. But I think that it's very possible
about a
for
time
someone
limit?
in a situation that's like 60 to lose their job and
it-
suddenly
You do have a
have
time limit. You do have a
not
time
enough
limit.
and through unforeseen factors. And
I
I,
kind
think
of want to
it's
go down a
perfectly
rabbit hole
fine
here
to help
with,
them
with,
out. Yeah,
with
Social
Wick and Ollie.
Security, but
Well, let me
Um,
answer your question real quick about the
yeah,
about realistically, right? How much fraud am I? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
listen,
yeah.
If people were taking 10% off the top, like your average little scam, your average little fraud, I don't think anyone would care.
2%.
But when you're talking about $9
Standard.
billion in Minnesota, I think that's fucking great. I listen. It's fucking nuts. That's a lot of fucking money. I think if it was,
Yeah.
Ollie's
I think
afraid
that-
Michigan's next. Ollie's
No,
afraid
no.
Michigan's next.
no, our scams are different. We scam insurances. We don't scam the government.
I mean, hey, a scam's a scam. So let me ask you. All right, so
Everyone's okay with scamming insurance every now
so
and then.
I'm curious
No,
because
That's how
this
you
is
get higher
fascinating
insurance
to me.
premiums, by the way.
Should
You're
there be
scamming.
a time limit on how long you can be on welfare or any of these other programs? Because we know,
unemployment-
because we know
Unemployment,
there's
yes.
dozens of stories, hundreds of examples of people who are professional welfare recipients.
well, hold on. When I was on unemployment, there was absolutely a time limit. I only
time
had
limit.
a certain amount of time. I don't
Okay.
remember off the top
Well, you
of my
said
head.
welfare.
They made it very clear to me that I would not continue to receive these benefits after a certain amount of
Okay.
time.
It's how much money you paid
but you
in.
said welfare.
So these restrictions exist.
Yeah, so for welfare, man, I think the issue is that you are just kind of giving money out directly to people. I don't like the idea of giving people a card with money. Personally, I've always preferred, like, I prefer like Section 8. I think Section 8 is better. Like, give some people a cheap place to live that, you know, someone is making money off of, right? Or if you want to do like food banks, so if someone was getting food like perhaps delivered.
Yeah, churches and food banks are great.
Yeah, free food versus like giving people a card with money. I've actually always hated because I mean a lot of the times people either like they turn around and sell it or it's just like
Yeah.
it's just a waste.
We've
You're
been
giving
down
people
that
cash.
road too with government.
Yeah,
food.
giving people money just isn't
We've been down the government food road before. It's not a good one.
I love government cheese. I still remember that when I was a kid.
I don't think necessarily government food, but like think man, so in the same way that you're giving out like a WIC card, right? You're giving out the bridge card, whatever it may be. If there was like if there was like some fucking process where you go to Walmart and there was an allotment like provided for you, right? That type shit.
Yeah, so the reason I gotta be honest with you. So
you can just describe food stamps.
right, actual food stamps.
Yeah.
So when I was
Maybe
younger, obviously we were dirt poor, and my parents occasionally had either unemployment. There were a couple of times I think my mom was on food stamps, but they were always off of it as fast as they could. You know, pride and all that. And I personally have never received unemployment or welfare of any kind myself. So I always wonder if I'm jaundiced if I just don't have that like ability to look at it. So I'm always very curious about how other people view it. And Ollie, you did a great job, man. I really appreciate that insight there. But
we appreciate your tax dollars as a taker.
I don't know. I like when I'm sitting here. I feel like there's more than this. There's smoke. There's fire. When I'm hearing everything I was saying. Yeah, I know. I got you. So like when I'm sitting here, and I guess last thoughts when we go to closing. What is the likelihood in y'all's minds? Because to me, I used to be pretty far, like not very high probability. So I'm starting to move more and more towards. I think that there's some sort of like institutionalized corruption occurring, like within the Dems. I think the Republicans probably had it with the whatever, but I think MAGA has come in and disrupted and created, probably their own versions of corruption, but not the same institutionalized that has been for a while. And I think we're starting to see it. How likely do y'all think that is? Just like a quick run around the room here.
Institutionalized fraud by like the Democratic Party.
Yeah, like the whole NGO system going on.
They're shipping it. They're like bringing people in to vote, and they're giving them a welfare trap, and then they're doing the fraud. And the fraud's like going back to because I mean, like, listen, I know y'all are gonna laugh at me, but like Tucker Carlson's about as big as you get. He proposed this exact same thing to Piers Morgan the other day. So like,
sure, I'll ask you. I'll just ask you. And my answer is in the question. Like, given that the Republicans, who are enemies to the Democrats, who do not like them. Given that Trump is in the White House and controls the whole administration, given that he's appointed Pam Bondi, Kash Patel into positions in the DOJ and the FBI, respectively, given that they control Congress, given that they control Senate, if there were evidence of this institutionalized fraud, why have there been zero arrests? Why has zero action been taken on this for Dems specifically as an institutional thing? So if it's like you're asking me how likely is it? Not very likely, because if it was there, absolutely Trump and them wouldn't just be talking about it. They'd be doing something about it, but they're not doing anything.
Or they're involved. I'll take the exact opposite position.
Yeah, I think they're involved. The word fraud. You mean legal?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Legal fraud, or are you talking just colloquially like a plan to funnel money to the party?
I'm saying it's institutionalized and in cahoots. That's what my premise is.
You're saying it's illegal, or you're saying that they found a way to do it legally?
They're doing both.
Okay, so I think that the latter is more true. We see with these NGOs, like Stacey Abrams' NGO had just started less than a year beforehand, had done no work and got like $20 billion, and it was completely staffed with out-of-work Democrat staffers and Democrat members that worked for different administrations and such. So I think that they are kicking money back to their party in some ways that are probably completely legal, that are written into bills that get passed, like that came from the Inflation Reduction Act. So we can absolutely see that on paper, and if that's what you're looking for, I can show you plenty of examples. But if you're looking for illegal fraud, I think Rick's right. We need actual proof of that, and we don't have it.
So what I'll say is, over the last, couple of decades, the Democrats have absolutely built a system of fraud in terms of, corporations, Wall Street being a big one, NGO collusion, and specifically, as I designed, the socialist programs that are designed to import people to forcibly integrate, you know, and to have loose immigration restriction while extreme welfare that just keeps going higher and higher and closer to what Europe does. I will also say, however, that the tide is turning, and that without a doubt, MAGA has committed far more fraud than I think probably the Democrats in the last 30 years combined all together. And what I'll say is this, is that over the last couple of years, I think with wokeness dying, the national security state apparatus and the intelligence community has shifted from the position of U.S. aid kind of style of foreign institutional capture via woke politics as a means of like spreading democracy throughout the world. And what MAGA, specifically Trump, has done has engaged in the largest fraudulent scheme that we've ever seen in world history, which is acquiring 10% of Intel, having Jensen from NVIDIA, you know, donate money towards his ballroom, connecting Palantir, you know, turning over the databases for TikTok with Oracle, which is, you know, previously worked on another government program with the CIA, so that we can have data centers and capture and control of our media, of our algorithms, and that the government and many of the people of Palantir, obviously working with defense contract agencies, over 3.3 billion as just part of the Intel merger, that what we are seeing is a majority of the global market is invested in AI, and there has been a massive collusion between the State Department, the intelligence community, and intelligence communities around the world, as well as Trump, to enrich himself, his friends, and, you know, the new American empire around AI for election purposes and for political power. So yes, I think what the Democrats do as a means of fucking over the poor and the middle class, but specifically targeting the middle class to create, you know, kind of like a you will own nothing and be happy kind of, you know, new liberal order, is horrific and horrible. But we're seeing the tide turn a little bit, and I think, you know, the corporate overlords that want to engage in controlling your data, controlling your information, controlling your algorithms is like the next phase of that, and I think that's predominantly Republican.
Yeah. So, what? You say what Scott said? What happens is Democrats are involved in blue collar and no collar crime, right? And then MAGA seems to be involved in white collar crime and white collar fraud, because what's happening is what's that between
you don't understand it very well then.
Really? No, you don't think the Democrats
Wall Street
are involved
overwhelmingly
in the
supports
blue collar?
Democrats. Why do you think Wall Street overwhelmingly supports Democrats?
No, I don't mean about Wall Street directly. I'm saying that like Trump has his coin.
White collar crime, NGOs.
He has his coin. He has his $50,000. He has his expensive dinner meetings. He has his the gold Trump card, the immigration card, $500,000 get you your immigrant status or whatever the fuck it is. I'm saying that's like
Trump is
that
a typical fucking
They're doing more
New
highbrow
York,
shit.
Atlantic City fucking
Doing more
former
highbrow
mob scammer.
Highbrow fraud.
The Democrats are engaged in this.
Anyway, finish out real quick, and then we're gonna go to closings after you finish, Ollie. Okay, yeah, let's go to closings. Oh, it zoomed in again. Here you go. Tyler, start us off with closing thoughts.
I love this camera.
I do too. I like it's like learning, but it's like some hand motions is getting confused. I don't know. It's getting better and getting worse at the same time. I'm hopefully they'll figure it out soon. But go ahead.
It's an Ozbot, right?
Yeah, it's I know it's something else. What is it? I'll tell you in a little bit. Go ahead.
I gotta go take the dogs out here in a second. Shut up! So I'm gonna go through a couple of things I just never got to because we moved on.
It is an Ozbot.
So what we kind of heard is a rebuke of our current immigration system and our social programs, and we got a long story from California that cost a guy a ton of money. And absolutely, you could cite some pretty bad examples if you're going to cherry pick the bad examples, but for every California high-speed rail system that takes 20 years and billions of dollars that never gets fully built, you can go to Florida and look and see that one get built in 6 years with significantly less money spent. It's just sometimes when you have democracy, you get inefficient people that come in and over-regulate for the climate. That's where a lot of these things actually come from. It's not that the government bad. It's that the people in that state wanted this specific regulation because they care more about the environment than their pocketbooks, which is the voters' prerogative to make. It's not all about just the GDP and money. The welfare state isn't going anywhere. We all know the risks of it. We all know that this thing can exist. We're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Instead, we're going to police the very low amount of fraud that actually happens. And the idea that people can do stupid or bad things, and that's a reason to throw out the system, would also say that since businesses fail, we should throw out capitalism, and nobody's going to make that argument because it's silly. So throwing out the welfare system because sometimes there's welfare fraud at very low rates, mind you. Now, something that I want to go back to the immigration part too, because something like 80% of visa workers come to the United States, they work and then they leave. They don't stay here, they don't start a family, they usually send money back home to their family so they can get ahead there and then go back to their country when they're done. We need people to stay here. We need that perpetual growth. The reason why is because the boomers are now aging up to the generation where we need the government systems to take care of them. As Wick was saying, most of our money goes to these top generations. In order to get that perpetual growth with the birth rates we have to import people. If we're importing people, they're just working for a few years and leaving. They're not a long-term investment in the country. We're spending money to bring in short-term investments that only help us in the short term. We need compassion-based immigration to get people to stay here long-term. So we bring in some people that Grid would deem as an undesirable. Sure, their IQ is low. Sure, they're a little bit more prone to criminality. Sometimes they eat people's faces. It happens, you know? As the Statue of Liberty said, bring us your poor, bring us your tired, bring us your sick, bring us your inbred. And after one generation, they turn around and they become fantastic citizens in society. They go to college at higher rates. They usually make more money than average U.S. citizens. So long term, they stay here. We build our safety net even bigger because we have more people coming here to contribute.
David.
Yeah, I think this issue of ought we prosecute the Democrats? You know, if we find smoking guns, obviously, like, I'm not going to cry about, you know, one criminal gang, which is the Trump administration, going after another criminal gang, which are Democratic politicians. I think it's important that we look at this and we, you know, that this blows things out of the water. And I do look at this very similar to the way that I look at Doge, right? Which is that Doge is largely a failure in terms of finding the amount of money and waste that they said they were going to find. But I think that it helped wake up a lot of Americans to just how stupid our government is. You know, people have a hard time with this potential paradox, which is that the government is maximally inefficient at everything that it does. It's full of fraud, waste, and abuse. It's the dumbest shit that any normal person would be like, well, I'd fix that if I was a manager. And at the same time, they have so much power. And that comes from the power to tax, because you can be as inefficient as you want if you can just take more money to solve the problem. And that's what we're seeing, you know, the collapse of the middle class in America because of welfare systems that have gone up over 700% in terms of funding in the last decade. We are watching, you know, our deficit balloon, and a large portion of that, most of that, is due to Social Security. The solvency of the dollar is going to eventually break, and our credit system, you know, as our ability to sell bonds to other nations is eventually going to break. And what we're seeing is we have to constantly be involved in wars to try and maintain tying our inflation, the US dollar, to oil trading and OPEC, right? Why the fuck do you think we invaded Venezuela? Because the American economy collapses if we don't keep invading Middle Eastern countries and invading countries like Venezuela, if we don't fight BRICS so that we have a means of making sure that the entire world has the same inflation rates that we have so that we can prop up this horrific economy. And that's why it's important when we see all of this fraud, waste, and abuse in these systems that we understand that it is a feature, that this is how the wealthy elite and the politicians enrich themselves and enrich their friends at your expense. At the normal person that goes, I've never been on welfare in my entire life, but I'm hearing that these people are getting millions. Like, what the fuck is this? You know, I put forward, as much as I'm a libertarian, and I hate the government, and I hate the state, and I hate welfare, man, we could give every poor person in America, every poor household in America, $35,000. $35,000. Just straight up give them a check. Get rid of all these programs. $35,000 a year on top of whatever bullshit McDonald's job they have, and they would be fine. They would be thriving. They would be okay. And we would save $700 billion. We would save fucking more money than we've ever paid to Israel since it's been a nation multiple times over a year. if we just gave out checks instead of enriching corporations and the corporate elite and politicians and scammers. That is why the government programs do not solve problems. And that is why we should look at these situations of fraud and realize that it's not necessarily, it doesn't need to be corruption for votes, but, you know, against whatever laws are made, but instead that's how the laws are made. They are designed to create a massive welfare state that incentivizes the poor people from other countries with fucked up values and low IQs and high rates of fucking being inbred, that send a bunch of money back home to Somalia, that supports terrorism and causes more wars. And don't worry, if they cause a fucking problem somewhere, the American military can step in and have another fucking war in the Middle East, because it's not like we've stopped in the last 20 years at doing those. And recognize that that is how the system is designed. It is designed as a eugenics program to outbreed high IQ and middle IQ people that are competitive and conscientious, and keep them from building families and keep them from being able to succeed, and to create a permanent underclass in this country that fights for breadcrumbs. We need to abolish welfare. You'll never solve this problem by prosecuting fraud, because the system is fraud.
All right, thank you so much, Grid.
Oh, okay. I'd made an assumption that you were going to let Wick or Ollie go before me, but that's okay. Yeah, look. So, Tyler, your closing sucked, man. I got to be honest. While I enjoy listening to Tyler, the points. Look, he's wrong about the percentages. He's wrong about so much, but I'm just gonna point to what the on-topic stuff is. First, there is fraud. We know there's fraud. I heard $1 billion. Ollie said way more, so maybe he's more up to date on the numbers than I am. But even if it's even if it's only $9 billion in fraud since whenever they started, that's too damn much. You know, it's too damn much. What has actually happened is not a eugenics program per se, as my friend Scott pointed out. But what has happened is portions of our government and private industry together have built a machine, a very efficient machine, an industry that steals money from taxpayers on an ever increasing and amazing level. There is no other word for it. It is theft. Nobody actually gets any benefit from that. Everyone who says, well, you know, welfare helped me out. Yes, that's great. It was state run. It wasn't, you know, I'm glad that you as an individual were helped. However, we're not talking about you as an individual. We're talking about companies that get money to provide daycare for students that don't exist, or to provide learning for adults that never go there. And yet they still get all of this damn money that comes from my taxes and Scott's taxes. And I'm assuming Tyler still pays taxes. I don't know. But
leaving out Ali, you fucking racist.
Well, I have to leave out Ali because he's from Michigan.
I avoid as much as I can.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not even sure Ali admits to being employed, okay? So, I mean, I'm just saying. It's a machine, and it's wrong. And I don't care whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats, but I think it's pretty clear in the two states that have been affected the most so far that a lot of it is done with members of the Democrat administration's knowledge. Now, whether or not they were complicit, I don't know. That's for a court to decide. Whether or not they're guilty of an actual crime, not my decision, pal. That's for a court to decide. And if they're acquitted, oh, you know, great, wonderful. But that doesn't change the fact that we know this is happening, we know where it's happening, and we know who's involved. We just don't know how much. Beyond that, I think we've had a lot of like around the poll discussion tonight that really doesn't matter. But it was interesting, and I had a good time. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Thank you so much, Ali.
Yeah. So I guess the more and more I have these conversations, especially with like Scott and then people in like, you know, and against him, in theory, I agree with Scott. I'm not gonna lie, I think he's correct in what ought happen, right? I do listen, I do, but in practice, I kind of align more with Wick, right? I do like my social policies. We do live here. In reality, I'm okay with a little bit of fraud, a little bit of scamming, 10% off the top, keep it clean, keep it light, keep it simple, right? But we do seem to be living in a world where it seems to be increasingly more government against the people. And if that's going to be the case, right, I'm going to start looking into how many daycares I can open up, because apparently it costs fucking nothing. All I have to do is rent a little studio somewhere. This is, you know, quick, and you don't get in that much trouble if you get caught. So
you just close down.
Just saying, recommendations. Thanks for having me on, Gibbs. I really appreciate it, fellas. It was a pleasure arguing with you tonight.
Thank you so much, and Wick.
Okay, well, we had a lot of words said, a lot of arguments made. Here's the long and short of it, and I'll do my best to be as concise as I possibly can. I do believe that there was and is fraud in Minnesota that is being conducted. I think